Kıymetli katılımcılar, oturum başlamak üzere.
Esteemed participants, please be seated. The session is about to start.
Twitter doluyor şu anda ve bir iki dakika sonra yayına girecek. Ben sana işaret verince oturum başladı.
Tamam. 1-2 dakika Delay alacağım. Kıymetli misafirler.
Esteemed guests, so we are going to have the first session for today about cultural encounters. The moderator will be Abdi Hersi, and the speakers will be Rukiye Abdirahman, Abdinazir Jama, Abdirashid Driye Kalma, and Yusuf Sheikh Omar. I would like to invite all these panelists to the floor.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. We'll just start. We're running late on this session. Yesterday was a very long day. Inshallah, today will be a very short day. We need to make it to Jummah prayers. So we'll try to stick on time, inshallah. So we have so far a panel of 4 presenters today. I will introduce them individually before their presentation. But let me just take you through. The theme of this session is cultural encounters. So we have a paper from Ruqayya, will be our first paper, and it's about understanding the rising popularity of Turkish drama among the Somali youth. We have also another paper from Abdel Nasser Jama to my left, Dr. Abdel Nasser, to my right, sorry. And it's about learning Turkish language, perceptions of the Somali students. We have a paper on cultural diplomacy and diaspora mobility from Abdurrashid Diria Kalmoy. I am told that Abdurrashid will be connected to this session at a later time. And the last paper is about the Somali diaspora, Turkish relationship is changing Somalia diaspora perspective on Turkey, from Dr. Yusuf Sheikh Omar, whom I consider to be a good friend from the same place, and it's good to see Dr. Yusuf online. So without further ado, I will start our first session, and I'd like to welcome Ruqayya Abdurrahman. Let me just talk about Ruqayya a minute before I ask her to start her presentation. Ruqayya Muhammad is a research fellow with 8 published works. Ruqayya has worked with organizations, programs such as Qatar National Research Fund, Somali Stability Fund, FAO, and the Save the Children on stabilization and development projects in the Horn of Africa. Ruqayya has obtained her Bachelor of Arts in International Affairs, Master's degree in International Relations. Please welcome Ruqayya.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So today I will be presenting in this paper, just a clarification, 8 published, actually 4 or 5 of those are forthcoming, so they're not out yet. They're either in peer review stage or research stage. So let's start with my research paper, Understanding the Rising Popularity of Turkish Drama Among Somali Youth. To be honest, most of my work was previously was on extremism and violent extremism, domestic extremism, whether in Somalia or the US, QAnon, ISIS, a little bit, Antifa. This is a little bit different to my work in the past, but when Dr. Fiaria Ilmi emailed me and said there are 2 topics on the table, culture and trade, I chose culture because in my past in Qatar University, where I studied my bachelor's degree, we briefly discussed and analyzed the Muhannad effect and how Turkish drama impacted the youth in the GCC, and how the religious leaders got involved and issued a fatwa, politicians got involved, and there was a lot of censorship, and there was a negative impact of how Turkish drama affected Gulf states. Saudi Arabia issued a fatwa. There were a lot of divorce rates increased because of the series Noor, and separation. A lot of couples got separated, so on and so forth. So we wanted to, just out of curiosity, replicate this research and methodology and see how it affected Somali youth in Somalia and Somaliland, specifically Mogadishu and Hargeisa. And because I was based in Hargeisa for the past year, up to 70% of my research findings 300 respondents, I would say up to 70%, were youth based in Hargeisa. So the thesis statement basically is analyzing and researching on why Somali youth watch Turkish series and understanding Turkish soft power among Somali youth. The methodology, just to discuss briefly, was due to COVID, we couldn't be on the ground. So when I say replicating the Muhammad effect and how Somali youth were impacted by Turkish series, we only conducted a survey of 16 questions translated in Somali. And we issued links on social media, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, LinkedIn. And those questions were multiple choice. We were confined due to COVID. We couldn't do focus group discussions. We couldn't conduct interviews or in-depth interviews. And this meant that a lot of it was somewhat limited. We'll get to that towards the end, limitations and challenges that we faced in this research. Basically, we looked at open-ended and closed-ended questions. Had questions like a Likert scale ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Multiple choice questions. We often gave them a list of choices whereby respondents could pick 1 to 7 or all. And we also gave the option of other, just in case their options or the preferences were not in the list. So for example, if we asked you your favorite colors, ranging from blue, orange, and white, but you said red, so you would answer that in the other option, to put it simply. Data analysis, this was a perception-based research, so regression models, regression analysis, or statistical inference was not involved in our data analysis. It was very brief and straightforward, looking at percentages and correlation, sometimes cross-analysis of variables. So when I asked questions like age group, gender, and the number of years you've been watching Turkish series, we'd cross-analyze those findings to questions like, what is your perception on Turkish foreign policy, positive or negative? What is your understanding of, or how do you view, what's your favorite, for example, favorite Turkish series and so on and so forth. We'll get to that in details. The findings, to put it briefly, we asked the age group. And most of our respondents, 221 respondents, were from the age group of 18 and 25. Of that, majority of the respondents were female. As expected, a lot of the viewers of Turkish series are young female. And we asked questions like, what is your favorite? Do you like Turkish series or Indian series more? And 124 respondents strongly agreed. Out of the 300, 66 agreed. And as we get to neutral, disagree, strongly disagree, the number decreases. When we looked at the number of, or the percentage of respondents that strongly agreed, most of them, as you can imagine, were youth. So 45% of the respondents that strongly agreed that Turkish series were better than Indian series. 18 to 25-year-olds strongly agreed. 45% of them strongly agreed. But as the age increased, we can say that the percentage of respondents also disagreed. Sorry, also decreased. Decreased, yes. How many years? One of the questions, actually the third question or fourth question we asked was, how many years were you watching Turkish series? So as you can see, 0, 1 month or 0 months, up to 4 years was the strong, basically, as you can see, 35% to 32% of the respondents, and that's significant in number. We'd say up to 100 and up to 200 respondents were watched Turkish series for average of 3 to 4 years. When we asked where do you watch Turkish series, majority of respondents, to be specific, 131 out of 300 watched it on TV or fanproj.com, which is a Somali websites or app where you have to pay subscription. Others watched it elsewhere because their favorite series or the series they preferred watching was not available on TV. They would go as far as watching it on Netflix or YouTube. Some of our respondents had spoke or understood Arabic, so they would watch it on MBC4 or Shahid, the app, which is also an Arabic app. And they didn't mind Arabic dubbed series. So basically, just to analyze this a little bit further, what this tells us is that when most of our respondents preferred having free access to Turkish series, but often they would go as far as paying for subscription. But that was a small percentage. We gave them a list of series ranging, so the most popular series. We give them a list of options, Edsel, and as you can see, all the way to Love 1-on-1. But when we also give them more options such as Other, and just to put it simply, our respondents had 3 or 4 themes that they liked, which is romance, history, all the way to sometimes revenge / betrayal. But most of our respondents preferred romantic series, and Ottoman history. As you can see over here, the bigger the circle, the more we had, the more respondents, if that makes sense. So when we asked our respondents, so the smaller the circle, the smaller the respondents, the smaller the percentage of respondents. If it's not clear, we will. It's very clear, yeah? So our respondents, we can say that preferred series that were popular in Turkey. So the ones that Turkish people followed and watched is the ones that they preferred watching. So if you just go back a little bit, those series are You Knock on My Door, You Are Mine, and Daydreamer. Those are the ones that are popular and the Somali youth prefer to watch. And if it was not available on Somali channels, they would go as far as watching it on YouTube or paying for subscription on other sources. So one of the questions we asked is, what do you like about watching Turkish series? And people often associated Turkish series with Islamic values or the Ottomanic history, all the way down to basically they preferred watching it because of the attractiveness of actors and actresses. And it's interesting because romantic Turkish series didn't necessarily have Islamic values. Actually, it was on the contrary, but still, Somali youth associated Turkish series or Turkish movies with Islamic values. The frequent respondents that we had ranged from, I think we've already said this. What are your favorite themes? Love was the most common, as we said earlier, and Ottomanic history. But if we put a figure to it, 147 up to 100 respondents is the figure of basically youth that liked Ottoman history and romantic series. So we gave them a statement as well and asked them to strongly agree all the way to disagree, pick their preference. Watching Turkish series has a positive effect on me, a statement. And Somali youth, most of them were neutral on that statement. So even though they didn't necessarily strongly agree with that statement or even agree with that statement and were somewhat neutral to it, 37% of the respondents were neutral, but they still preferred watching it. In fact, what's interesting is that our respondents didn't necessarily see a commonality of shared values with Somali culture. They didn't necessarily see that there was shared commonality with Turkish series or Turkish culture and Somali culture, but they still preferred watching. So we asked why, and they told us that it was because of the quality of Turkish series, or just for fun and entertainment, or a small percentage stated that it was because of cultural similarities. And that's interesting because they consistently told us that they didn't have shared values with the Turkish series. So when we look at a comparison between the impact Turkish series had on Somali youth versus Arab youth, as we said earlier, Arab youth looked at Arab youth. A lot of the research stated that it's because of modernization. That was a driving factor as to why people watched and liked watching Turkish series. Another factor is cultural proximity, as in the more likely they were to basically there were similarities between Arab culture and Turkish culture, which is why respondents liked watching it. But when it comes to Somali youth, it was on the opposite spectrum. So even though there was less commonality with Somali culture and Turkish culture, they still watched. And the reasons included, as we mentioned earlier, the quality of the production, history, commonalities between Ottoman and basically once upon a time, Somalis were there's a positive. So to put it simply, I'm sure a lot of us are aware that Somalis were invited or were open to inviting the Ottoman history, the Ottoman Empire, versus as opposed to the Arabs or the Gulf states that didn't necessarily have a positive interaction with the Ottoman Empire. And our youth, Somali youth, even went as far as wanting to learn the language, Turkish culture, and Turkish history on their own from sources that they often had to pay for. So one of the series that we looked at, okay. So one of the statements that we have given our respondents was watching Turkish series has had a positive impact. Watching Turkish series has had an impact on my view of Turkish foreign policy. 20% agreed, but most were neutral on the subject. And when we analyzed further, just to look at so you can just ignore most of the percentages and focus on the agreed. So we cross-analyzed our respondents and analyzed the question of what percentage, gender with the question of, with this statement. And we saw that respondents who watched Turkish series for a greater number of years were agreed. Just to read it at the bottom, the higher the number of years respondents watched Turkish series, the more likely they were to agree with Turkish foreign policy. So we even gave them the statement, I view Turkey as a strategic partner for Somali people, and significant response. We had up to 39% of the youth agreed that, strongly agreed in fact, with this statement, and that's significant. When we analyzed further and asked, basically, when we looked at, apologies for this, respondents watched Turkish series for 5 to 7 years. 57% of them strongly agreed, and so The greater the number of years they watched Turkish series, the more likely they were to agree with the statement of Turkey being a strategic partner for Somalis. Some of the challenges we face, as we mentioned earlier, is because of Corona, time constraint, and we only focused on capital cities. So 70%, up to 70% of our respondents were from Hargeisa, but I'm sure we might have had slightly different responses from people in Mogadishu. In conclusion, policymakers, we divided our findings excuse me. Okay, so for policymakers, we would recommend looking at, so to avoid in the long run, generally we had a positive reaction from our youth, our Somali youth. It was positive, but that's not to be taken for granted. A lot of the respondents, Somali youth, liked Turkish series and had a positive reaction or interaction with the Somali Turkish series, but that's not to be taken for granted. As in order to avoid fear of new Ottomanism, there has to be more mutual exchange of cultures, and that's not necessarily there at the moment. For researchers, as mentioned earlier, there's a lack of awareness of Turkish foreign policy, and that might be associated with most of our respondents being from Hargeisa. So so Turkish foreign policy is not necessarily very present in Hargeisa as compared to Mogadishu, and that might be one reason. On shared commonalities, even though there wasn't a lot of cultural similarities, people still chose to watch Turkish series, and that might be because of the historic interaction with, yeah. For entrepreneurs, we would recommend that TV stations invest more in giving or presenting to. So right now we only have one channel or two channels Somali channels TV stations that give like a limited version, Turkish series, and it would be interesting, since Somali youth like Turkish series, to give them more options for free. Even though people they would go as far as paying for subscription, but most of our respondents prefer watching for free. And in the long run, it would also be interesting to see more youth invest in dubbing apps such as FanProj or websites, or creating them, as it's not available at the moment. And that would be interesting, because right now we only have one. So it would be interesting to invest in Somali youth who are willing to create FanProj and such good quality websites. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you very much, Ruqayya, for an excellent presentation. I will now go to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Dr. Abdul Nasir Jama, and learning Turkish language perceptions of the Somali students. Dr. Abdul Nasir. Dr. Abdul Nasir Jama holds a PhD in education with several published articles. He's a senior educational consultant who currently works with the Federal Ministry of Education, Culture and Higher Education of Somalia. Please welcome Dr. Abdul Nasir to present. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm happy here to be with you and I thank to everyone participated in the organization of this glorious meeting. As we all know that, Turkey has, provided and helped Somalia in many ways. So my study was investigating whether Somali people, are interested or, like learning the Turkish language. Somalia has been receiving a lot of humanitarian assistance from Turkey, and also Somalia has, good relationship with Turkey, past and now. So my study was looking, many ways of this idea. My study begins with, some introduction about Turkey and the number of the people that, speaks with this language. I start the study with, some introduction, looking at, the location of Turkey. As we know that Turkey located in a very strategic position. It connects to three oldest continent of the world. It locates in Asia as well as in Europe. And also it has very good proximity to Africa. So this position paves the way for Turkey to have good relationship with all these three continents. Also, many problems and also, man-made disasters are, taking place and happening all over the world. So Turkey also helps these people, and some of them came here. All these, help the Turkish government, to spread the language as well as other cultural issues to these countries. Also, they study, investigates and asks many questions from these aspects. Since the last decades also, the study says that Turkey has spread to many countries, such as sub-Saharan Africans. Before the current, the part of who governs the country, Turkey has only 2 embassies in sub-Saharan Africans. But now it has more than 40 political relations with these countries. In these relations, which are humanitarian, political, and economic relations, the government provides, also the Turkish government spreads its culture in these countries, which is included the language of the country. In the economic relations, as well as the political relations and the humanitarian relations, it can be said from the studies I have read that Turkish government intends to spread its culture, and also it included the language. So my study says that Turkish government intends to spread the culture, also through which is included the language. So also, same as that, many students came to Turkey for every year, and they study with Turkish language. They study with Turkish language. I've met many students from Somalia and many other countries who speak Turkish fluently. So this paves the way for the Turkish language to spread in many countries. Also in Somalia, there are a lot of Somali students who graduated from Turkey, and they speak Turkish, amazing. Another way which helps the Turkish language to spread in many countries is tourism, who visit the country every year. When people visit Turkey and they come to Turkey, they know many things about the language, so they will have, some curiosity to learn more about the language. Also, Turkey has many good relationships with economic relations with other countries. All these factors, the humanitarian relations, the economic relations, the educational relations, the tourism, all these factors help the language to spread in many ways, in many, many places of the world. Based on that, Turkey, that's in general. In Somalia, as we, talking about all yesterday and today, Turkey helped Somalia in many ways, and it is still helping the country. So the Somali people believe that Turkey is the most sincere friend who helps the Somalia compared to other international powers who are in Somalia. This made Somali people to respect Turkish, everything Turkish. They respect everything Turkish. They like Turkish as they don't like any other country, any other people. So I asked myself that whether since Turkey are helping Somali, and Somalis like Turkish, everything Turkish, and they refer everything Turkish. Do they like or do they want to know more about the culture of Turkey, or do they like to learn the Turkish language? So I specifically, investigated 4 constructs, such as the interest of Somali students in learning the Turkish language, their desire in learning the language, their attitudes towards learning the Turkish language, and their motivation is to learn the Turkish language. So my study have answered 2 questions. The first one is, what are the perceptions of Somali students to learn the Turkish language? And the other one is, how are they clear about the motivation about learning the Turkish language? Before I, conduct the survey, I have reviewed the literature and, so that I know the motivations and the perceptions which are behind or which drive people to learn and acquire another language. Literature says that Turkish language is used by more than 140 million, native speakers. Other researchers say that it's spoken by more than 160 million native and foreign speakers. The literature also says that the Turkish government has enacted a policy to make its language as the language for science and the acquisition of the skills in every field of study in the country. Also, UNESCO says that acquiring another language is very good for one's employability. Also, UNESCO recommends everyone to know at least 3 languages. Mother language, the other one is at least 1 regional language, and the other one is at least 1 international language. Everyone UNESCO recommends everybody to know, at least 3 languages. Besides of that, many students came here, Turkey, to learn in Turkey. And literature says that students are attracted to come to Turkey by the quality of education provided by the universities, also the interest to learn, to live in Turkey, and also the free educational services and scholarships provided by the Turkish government. Several researchers, or many researchers, confirm that students are encouraged to learn other languages. There are many factors which influence to learn someone or drive someone to study another language. One of them is the perception of the body, the interest the person has to learn the language, and the motivation of the person to have, other language. So So the constructs of my study are confirmed by other researchers in the field of study. My research the methodology I used is qualitative research methodology with descriptive statistics. I adopted the instruments from other researchers. The instruments I have used are widely validated and used by many researchers, and it's used to assess the attitudes and the motivations of learning other language. I have, my respondent of the respondent of my study was 310 persons, categorized in three levels: newly secondary graduated student, or are in secondary level now, undergraduate student, and postgraduate student. The respondents were at least 157 undergraduate student, 50 postgraduate student, and 103 Form 4 students. So, as I said, I have looked at 4 constructs: the interest of the student, their desire, their attitude, and their motivation. Here are the results of my study. The results show that participants have high level of interest in learning the Turkish language. Okay. The results show that participants have high level of interest in learning Turkish language, scoring an average mean of 3.4, meaning that they are close to the agreement side. I have used a 5-point Likert scale, which is disagree, strongly disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree. So the 5 levels of, I have used these 5 points of Likert scale. So, meaning to say that most of the participants or the respondents have high level of interest with a mean average of 3.4. Similarly, the study says that participants have high level of desire to learn the Turkish language with an average mean of 3.3. In addition, they have also a positive attitude towards learning the Turkish language. Participants have agreed the positive items, as well they rejected the negative items. Okay. In the last construct, participants have expressed that they are motivated by many factors, such as employability. They are expecting to have employment using that when they learn that language. Also, they say that we will know more about our brothers, Turkish brothers, and their culture. So they are motivated by many factors in to learn that language. So, meaning to say is that in Somali students are highly interested in learning Turkish language, and they also have high desire to learn that language, and they are also motivated by many factors to learn the language. So I have come up with several recommendations for this study. The study shows that there is no structured awareness campaigns from any side, but people are highly motivated, but it is not clear by who motivated them, who encouraged them. So means there is no awareness campaigns for this. So my study suggests that Turkish policymakers and development agencies to have awareness campaigns in this way, so that the language of Turkish is spread in Somalia. The study also shows that the 3 categories all the three categories have high level of interest. But when I have done further investigations, I knew that secondary students have the highest level of interest. So I recommend to think of the possibility of adding Turkish language subject in the curriculum, subject in the curriculum subjects of the universities. I recommend with this week. Also, participants show that they don't have any awareness of Turkish language, which might be attributable to the unequal presence of Turkish government to the country. As we all know, the government, the Turkish presence is condensed only in south central of the country, as many people said before me. Also, I suggest that Turkish language to reassess its presence across all the country, and it's to spread its presence in everywhere of the country. My last recommendation is that since this is the first kind of study in Somalia, I recommend many researches for further investigations to be conducted in this area. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
And thank you very much, Dr. Abdel Nasir, for a very good presentation. Our next presentation is about cultural diplomacy and diaspora mobility, narratives and reflections from the Somali diaspora in Istanbul. I can see now that Abdurrashid Diria Kalmoy is online. So Abdurrashid is the presenter. Abdurrashid Diria Kalmoy has a Bachelor of Science in Political Science and Public Administration from Hacettepe University and Masters of Arts in Sociology from Ibn Khaldun University. He is a PhD candidate living in Istanbul and occasionally a freelance journalist and editor. Please welcome Abdurrashid to present. Thank you.
Greetings, everybody. So let me share my presentation slides, then I will proceed to the presentation. So my names are Abdurrashid Diria Kalmoy and I'm from Kenya. And I am a PhD candidate here in Istanbul, Ibn Khaldun University Sociology Department. The title of my presentation, which is also the title of my research project, is Cultural Diplomacy and Diaspora Mobility, Narratives and Reflections from the Somali Diaspora in Istanbul on Turkey-Somalia Relations. So the research question of my research project is what role or influence is Turkey's cultural diplomacy playing in the mobility and relocation of the Somali diaspora towards Turkey? I have been living here in Turkey for the last 8 years. I did my undergraduates and masters here in Turkey, and I have been witnessing the expansion of the Somali diaspora in Istanbul and in Ankara and many other cities. So I'm kind of investigating this phenomena. So what are the subject matter of this study? The subject matter of this study is an analysis to conduct an analysis of Turkey-Somalia relations in the last 1 decade, which is very significant. The other subject matter of this study is the perception of the Somali diaspora in Istanbul on Turkey-Somalia relations. How do the Somali diaspora perceive? What is their views on this diplomatic relationship between Turkey and Somalia? And the final subject matter of my research project is the influence and the efficacy of Turkish cultural diplomacy towards Somalia. So what are the significances of this study? I am contributing a new perspective, which is a sociological and anthropological investigation into an area that is normally dominated by geopolitical dominated by political science and IR discourses and conceptualizations. So I am bringing a multidisciplinary approach to Turkey-Somalia relationships. The other significance of this research project is I am trying to offer a micro perspective. Sociologically speaking, I am interested in the views and the perceptions of the local people, what the people in the streets talk about, how do they, view this diplomatic relationship between Turkey and Somalia. So I'm emphasizing on the micro perspectives, contrary to the macro perspective of, political scientists and expertise in the field. And the other significance of this study is to investigate the unexpected outcome of Turkey-Somalia relationships, and that is the unexpected outcome, which is the diaspora mobility towards Turkey. So what kind of objectives am I trying to achieve in this study? First of all, I am trying to offer the narratives, voices, reflections, testimonies of the Somali diaspora in Istanbul, to offer a micro perspective, and academically speaking, to contribute simultaneously both to Somali diaspora studies and Turkey-Somali diplomatic relationship, and contribute to the literature on this field. The other objective of this study is to study and analyze the perspective of non-scholarly, and expert groups. Political geopolitics and diplomatic relations are dominated. The discourses and the literature is dominated with expertise perspective. So my objective is to bring what is the public opinion of the people on the streets and the local person thinks about in this relationship. So in conducting this research, what are the shortcomings of this study? What kind of challenges do this study face? Since one of the challenges is that since I am focusing and emphasizing on the Somali diaspora in Istanbul, I am limiting myself and my perspective to the Somali diaspora in Istanbul. The Somali diaspora is very large, is very global, is dispersed all over the world, but I am interested in those who live in Istanbul, and that is a kind of a limitation for this study. The other limitation for this study is since I am bringing in sociological and anthropological conceptualizations and methodology into political science and IR, there could be some conceptualizations issues, and this is the challenge that any multidisciplinary approach will face. But I see it as an advantage and bringing into the table a new perspective and a different perspective. The other shortcoming is I am emphasizing again on the micro perspective and marginalizing or negating the macro perspective. But still, in the literature review, I'm also using the normative conceptualizations of political science and IR in the field. So I am not necessarily negating the macro perspective, but I am using it as a tool, but emphasizing on the macro perspectives. So this is the profile of the project. The methodology of this research project is based on ethnographic fieldworks. Ethnography is a methodology that is very common among anthropologists and sociologists. So I had questions that were open-ended and structured questions that inquired the interviewees about the Turkey-Somalia relationship. The fieldwork context or the ethnographic fieldwork context of this project was Istanbul's Fatih districts, Başakşehir, Esenler, and Esenyurt districts. And these are districts that have a substantial population of a Somali diaspora. And this research was conducted for 2 years, from the summer of 2019 to July to 2021. It was interrupted by the COVID-19 global pandemic, but I was successful enough. I was happy that finally I was able to finish the project this summer. And for the context of this study, I am using 21 interviews. These interviews were conducted through face-to-face interviews. There was no online or digital interviews. And moreover, I had numerous visitings or participant observations that I went to, different restaurants, cafes, business enterprises that are owned or operated by the Somali diaspora, and interact with them and collect their testimonies and their views on Turkey-Somalia relationship. So in the last 20 years, there has been a very big transformation in the Turkish foreign policy. Foreign policy decision-making mechanisms have undergone significant changes in Turkey since AK Party government came to power in 2001. But the significant question is, why is Turkish foreign policy transforming? Why has it transformed? What is the rationale behind this transformation? And what are the consequences of this foreign policy transformation? So I have made a distinction between the pre-AK Party Turkish foreign policy and the AK Party Turkish foreign policy. And the pre-AK Party Turkish foreign policy, historically speaking, is based on Turkish identity, which emerged with the rise of the new Turkish Republic. So with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the emergence of the Republican Turkey headed by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, Turkey had a new identity and it was a new political entity. So this new political entity and it is a new identity shaped and configured Turkish foreign policy. So Turkish foreign policy orientation was an extension of this discourses of national identity, and this national identity was predicated on secularism, Kemalism, westernization, all these narratives, and all these narratives and political identities formulated and give shape to the Turkish foreign policy before AK Party, in the pre-AK Party period. So in the pre-AK Party period, Turkey aligned its foreign policy interests and preferences with NATO, the US, and the Western powers, and this was a strategic decision since during the Cold War, Turkey was on the southern flank of NATO, and there was tantamount threats from Russia, and Turkey had to safeguard its interest under the umbrella of the Western alliance. And in this period, Turkey had no substantial foreign policy towards the Middle East, Central Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Diplomatic ties were, of course, there, but they were not that significant as relatively compared to the situation we have right now. So in the literature, some of the commentators on Turkish foreign policy have criticized the pre-AK Party foreign policy as being painted with subservience to Western lines and unconditional acceptance of Western stances. So when AK Party came to power in 2001, this was a new age, according to Ibrahim Kalin, who is the current spokesperson of the Turkish presidency. It was with the war on terror, with the globalization and the digital age, and the emergence of a new regionalization in the world. Turkey has begun a process of soul searching, and this soul searching had a consequence, and that is the transformation of Turkish foreign policy from securitized nationalism and Kemalism and westernization to desecuritized liberalism. So in this era, we have seen the expansion and the influence, tangible and symbolic influence of Turkish foreign policy in the Middle East, in Central Asia, Africa, and the Americas. So if I turn to now into a specific topic, and that is Turkish foreign policy towards Africa, to be fair, the Turkish foreign policy toward Africa started even before the AK Party came to power. In 1998, Turkey's first Africa Action Plan was unveiled by the then Foreign Minister Ismail Cem. And with that unveiling, Turkey was using to its own advantage its historical and geopolitical ties with Africa. So with North Africa and East Africa, where Turkey had some influence, both administratively, culturally, or which were the neighboring realms or parts of the Ottoman Empire. The other dimension of Turkish foreign policy towards Africa is that it was based on a clear objective and policy outline, which was this mantra of more economy and less politics. So Turkey was involving itself in humanitarian, education, and economic enterprises, and emphasizing less on politics. But of course, politics was there, but it was not the main, defining dimension of Turkish foreign policy in Africa. And as my previous presenter mentioned, in one decade, Turkish embassies in Africa rose from 14 in number and to 42. That is remarkable, speaking from if we analyze it from a diplomatic point of view. So Turkey-Somali relations, Turkey and Somalia, or Turkey, Somalia and the Ottoman Empire, the history is very long. It goes back to in the 15th centuries and the 14th centuries during Ahmed Guri and the Adal and Ifat sultanates, who had relationships with the Ottoman Empire that was present in the Eritrean seas and in Yemen. But for our own purpose and for the context of this research, Turkish foreign policy 2011 was the turning point for Turkey-Somalia relations. We all remember that first visit then Prime Minister Erdogan made to Turkey in 2011 during the drought that was devastating East Africa and the whole Somali world. So that image of being the first head of state or head of government visiting Somalia has been seared into the psyche and the minds of many Somalis. So with 2011, Turkey started a broad range humanitarian implementation, which was very efficiently managed. It was and it had many various dimensions, and and Turkey contributed in the last 10 years in different institutional buildings and capacity buildings. So the last one decade, Turkey has become Somalia's prime partner in state building processes. And we have to mention that in this one decade, Turkey has managed, to not interfere or entangle itself into the Somali politics, which is very complex, very intricate, very clan and regional based, and very nuanced. And Turkey achieved something that even Ethiopia and Kenya, who are neighbors to Somalia, failed to achieve, and it kind of maintained a distance, and the political functions view Turkey as a reliable, a power that they can relate to. So that last 10 years that Turkish foreign policy has also had a very successful dimension, and that is cultural diplomacy. And cultural diplomacy is defined as the use of creative expressions and exchange of ideas, information, and people to increase mutual understandings in diplomatic ties. So diplomatic ties are not only between governments, but they are also between communities, societies, and peoples. And cultural diplomacy plays a very good role. Cultural diplomacy usually emerges at times of crisis. We know President Erdogan visited Somalia at a very critical moment, and we know that major cultural diplomacy policies, the biggest one in the world is the Marshall Fund that America invested in Europe after World War II. So the other thing about cultural diplomacy is that cultural diplomacy is a way of branding and selling nations. You know, nations use their cultural diplomacy policies to tell other nations, other societies, other regions of the world, this is who we are, this is how we should, we will interact with you. This will be our modus operandi. Yani? And I believe and argue in my paper that in the last 1 decade in Somalia and in many African countries, the cultural diplomacy of Turkey has been very efficient and very successful. Turkey is seen as a business-friendly country. There are almost 150,000 African students here who are receiving scholarships, you know, as education. Many Africans come here for health issues, tourism, business. If you just visit Istanbul's Fatih district and, you know, Aksaray, the number of, you know, businesses operated there that, you know, send goods and cargoes and air ticket offices will, you know, this will bring my point home that Turkey is becoming engaged in Africa and Somalia. So when we come to this,
Abdul Rashid, I don't know if you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear.
I think you have 3 minutes to finish. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. So when we come to the Somali diaspora in Istanbul, we have 2 categories. I categorize them into 2. The first category is the transit migrants. These are Somalis who come to Turkey so that they transit to Europe. And the other category is, you know, the Somali diaspora, you know, people with European passports who come from Europe and North America. And there's a class distinction and status distinctions. And the Somali transit migrants have been passing through Turkey even before 2011. But in the last 5-6 years, the Somali diaspora in Istanbul is expanding. So why is the Somali diaspora relocating to Istanbul? And this is the thesis, the research question on the thesis of my paper. One is Turkey-Somalia relations and Turkey's efficient cultural diplomacy. The other factor that, you know, I extrapolated from the interviews and the literature I conducted is the impact of the war on terror narratives in the Western world and the surveillance issues that many Somali communities face. And maybe Istanbul has become the new center for Somalis. You know, Somalis will take their kids to, you know, Garissa or Jigjiga or Djibouti, so that they get some, you know, cultural capitals, language, or some, you know, etiquettes. But now they are bringing them to Istanbul, and Turkey has become an alternative because of its religious, cultural profiles. And the other thing is the Somali diasporas, when they come to Istanbul, they can afford the life standards here, and most of them have buy houses, you know, and real estates. So I will give 3 samples of the interviews I conducted. The first is Mama Kaltun, who relocated from Denmark. She's in her 50s, 4 kids, and she complained about how she felt lonely in Denmark, and, you know, the climate, and how she felt many challenges raising her kids in that country. And if you read the full paper, she appreciates that the fact that in Istanbul she can hear the azan and the mosques. She's very happy, and that's one of the motivating factors that brought her here. The other interviewee is Mr. Abshir, 65 years old, from the UK, a former Somali member. 2 of his sons are you know, university students here at Istanbul Technical University, operating a very successful cargo company to Hargeisa, to Djibouti and Jigjiga. And he emphasized that Turkey is, you know, playing a big role in Somali military capacity building, state building. And he suggested that every Somali government should have a tangible relationship with Turkey. And the final example is Mustafa, 43 years old, from the UK, a businessman in Ankara. I met him here in Istanbul, and we had a very good conversation and interview. He emphasized again on the humanitarian effort Turkey played in Somalia, but he had a unique perspective where he was skeptical and critical of the fact that Turkey had a military base in Somalia, and he was also critical of the AMISOM presence in Somalia. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm very grateful, thankful to the organizers. I was not able to attend because of some funerals, some family funeral, and I had to travel to Nairobi, and I could not even travel because of some bureaucratic nightmares in the airport. But inshallah, next year, if the second series will come, inshallah, I'll be present. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Abdul Rashid. Now we'll just go straight into our next and final presenter. The topic of this presentation is Somali diaspora, Turkish relationships, changing Somali diaspora's perspective on Turkey. The presenter is Dr. Yusuf Sheikh Omar. Dr. Omar holds a PhD from the School of Social Science, La Trobe University, Australia. Currently, he's a research associate at the School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS at the University of London. His research has focused on peace building in the Horn of Africa, African diaspora's knowledge and skills transfer towards mechanisms of peace and nation building, emotional well-being, identity, belonging, social transformation, and cultural adaptation of young Africans and Muslims in Western countries. Please welcome Dr. Yusuf Sheikh Omar. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Yusuf, and I say thank you very much, Dr. Abdihirsi, and great to see you virtually as well. I think someone will assist me from African Foundation in my slides. My computer has some difficulties really to share with the slides, so I can't see the slides. Can anyone put my slides?
Yes, that will be done, and I would like you to stick to the 15-minute presentation.
Yes, fantastic. Okay, great. So thank you, Dr. Abdihirsi, and also my appreciation extends to the African Foundation and also Heritage, and also the participants as well. Just waiting to see my slides. Is it coming, or can I use my own skills, just the 2%?
We can see your slides. I don't know if you can see your slides, and if you cannot see, you might as well just present.
Oh, I can't see them at all. Anyways. So anyways, I'll use, yes, I can see now. Can you make it bigger, please? A full scale. Okay, so this is the topic. It's a Somali diaspora and Turkish relationship. It's not a master's research project or PhD in any ways. It's a small paper prepared for this conference. And I would like to start with the Somali wisdom that says, Niman Ulmarin Dayamale, a person who doesn't travel overland, it does not gain insight. It shows, travel and movement is a process of learning and also a wisdom. Can you move the second slide? Okay, Somali diaspora, by definition, diaspora is a community dispersed into 2 or more countries outside of their countries of origin and have in mind to contribute to rebuilding their country and also to go at some point. In the Somali mindset, diaspora refers to the Somalis living outside of Africa or perhaps even outside of Asia, particularly those living in the West. And they actually link to the entitlement of nationalities and citizenship and the rights that they can't actually find in Africa or other African countries. So the Somalis living in Africa or in Asia, in the Somali mindset, can be a semi-diaspora, not really a real diaspora. The Somali diaspora, there are 4 main waves of Somali diaspora outside of Somalia. The first wave was a seaman, who went to the UK from 1880s and onwards, and also Aden. The second wave was the Gulf, the Somali migration to Gulf for oil boom in the early 1970s. The third wave was the migration to Europe, late 1970s to Norway, Sweden, and somewhere else. And the fourth one, and the largest one, was the collapse of state, the central state of Somalia from 1991 up to date. The Somali community is becoming one of the largest diaspora community in the world, in a sense. Somalia is truly a globalized nation. Please move on. By representation, UK has the largest Somali diaspora community, just by estimation, 350,000 up to 500,000. And then the second is the USA, and the third is the Canada, and then the Denmark, the Norway, the Sweden, and you can see the figures. I haven't included, the Turkey that was mentioned yesterday, around 20,000 of Somalis in Turkey, and then Finland. Can you move it? Okay, my paper methodologies. Relevant, literature has been reviewed. Qualitative, I used qualitative questionnaire surveys that I distributed into 19 participants, 4 females and 15 males. I really wanted to keep gender balance, but for some reason it couldn't happen. Many Somali girls, didn't send it back, and maybe it was a general, related issue. 7 of them at that time were from Europe, and also they lived in Turkey, and 11 in the UK, and 1 in the USA. All of them, all of the 19, visited to Turkey at some point in their lives. Acronyms. So when you see SBM, Adventist Somali British man, SBY Somali British woman, Somali German man, Somali Dutch man, and move on. Please move the second slide. Okay, and for the literature review, the reason engagement and his visit, His Excellency Erdogan, Prime Minister at that time, did actually galvanize Somali society outside and inside of Somalia. A Facebook page was set up during his visit, and also after his visit, to say thank you, Erdogan and Turkey. Somali diaspora sent countless, a lot of letters to different offices in Turkey, to the embassies. Somali diaspora flocked and went in big numbers to Turkish embassies in the world. At that time, I was in Australia, and we went to the Turkey consulate in Melbourne. Somali diaspora Somali diaspora positive feelings toward Turkey have been created by Turkish, people's good intention and practical support. Somali diaspora writers also did engage the topic, and they wrote a lot of papers, about his visit and also the contribution as well. Here is the second slide. Diplomatic and political engagement with Somali diaspora. Diaspora engagement with Turkey, with Turkish embassies. Around 5,000 Somalis, prepared a letter and sent it to the legislator in Mississippi, complaining and condemning a bill that was expected, to endorse the issue of the Armenia, the genocide issue. In 2012, a big Somali, diaspora were invited to attend that, society conference in Istanbul. The GST Global Somali Diaspora, these gentlemen and diplomats and intellectuals and politicians, including Abdurrahman Ainte, Mehmet Koze, Abdul Karim Jama, Dr. Kani Torun, Abdul Rashid Hashi, Dr. Olgan Becker, and Mursal Sene actually had a meeting in 2012 to discuss the possibility to establish, Somali diaspora or institutionalized Somali diaspora similar to Turkish diaspora. They worked very hard until conference was organized in Istanbul in 2014, and then GSD was established. And there are also, by the way, many other Somali diasporic active communities who are engaged with Turkish societies in one way or another. Please move on. Okay, my research findings, the data. Move to second slide. So I just really wanted to know, the reasons behind going to Turkey and also their expectations and fulfillment while they are in Turkey. So one of them was a holiday. Just talking to those in the West, the holiday might not even existed in the mindset of Somalis in Somalia, but in the West, yes. So the holiday just to enjoy, its beautiful landscape, understand Islamic history in Turkey, educational purposes, employment, businesses, opportunities. With one exception, all of them actually met their expectations. Before his visit in 2011 to Somalia, the major holiday destinations for the Somali diaspora were Dubai, Kenya, and London. But that has changed, significantly. Please move to the second slide. Diaspora Voices, it was beyond my expectation, and I was really surprised by how developed, it was. Example, transport link, nightlife, safety, and a very friendly, people. Fauzia, Somali British woman, age group. Okay, wonderful history, delicious food, and a very friendly locals, Gulet. Looking to return to Turkey with the rest of my family. Qali, a Somali British woman. Please move on. The second, okay. Sorry, go back. One slide back, please. One slide back. Yes, flying with Turkish Airlines. So I asked them why do they travel with Turkish Airlines, and they said because of its good services. Diaspora Voices, because of its very good facility services. Farah from Germany. Diaspora told me that they wanted to help Turkey, Turkish Airlines, because Turkish people and Turkish Airlines helped us when we needed the most. So now we want our money to go back to Turkey. Roble, please go. Okay, and then I wanted to know the attractions and also influences while being in Turkey. So one of them was, Turkey or Turkey cultural, stuff and historical aspects shaped by the Islam. This is very much similar with the research of Ruqya as well. Islamic visibilities, mosques, hearing the adhan, observing Islamic history, and like on. These have greatly contributed to the diaspora's emotional, psychological, and social, well-being, and redefined also their Islamic identity. Turkish food was one of the purposes. They said, they really enjoyed the Turkish food. That was the attraction. A beautiful landscape, the beach, the mountains, forest, holiday nights, safari, scuba diving, Grand Bazaar, Topkapi, something I don't know exactly myself, Topkapi Palace, hospitality and friendly Turkish people, as well as the clear, clean streets and so on. So you can see the feeling and appreciation. One slide back, yes. Diaspora Voices, I like Islamic visibility, mosques, and muazzin. Muazzin, I mean actually adhan. That was Somali, that a man. I like the culture and how welcoming the people are, people of Turkey. Not to mention the food was phenomenal, and they had excellent climate. Diriye, go ahead. Okay. challenges. And then I wanted to know about, the challenges and the difficulties they face. The language was really a big barrier. That was a consistent traffic system. They said, oh, it's quite chaotic. Speedy driving attitudes, and also widespread smoking, cigarettes. Yeah, something I don't know myself. Immigration system, they really complained about the immigration system. They said it was so difficult and daunting. Cultural barrier was not really mentioned. When we are in the West, in the North America or Europe, the first, challenge is mentioned is the culture shock and cultural difficulties. But in this case, it has not been mentioned, indicating, cultural similarities shaped by the Islamic values. The Ruqya research was quite very interesting to find out something different as well. Diaspora voices, most of Turkish people don't speak other language. They might avoid, some said even they know the other language, but they're so nationalist and they don't like to speak. Even this conference, most favors, from Turkish side, I think we were presented in Turkey language. I attended yesterday online. I couldn't really understand most papers in Turkish language. Please move on. Turkey is becoming a meeting hub for a dialogue and interaction between Somalis, diaspora voices. I met Somalis in Turkey. Some migrated from Middle East and had, settled in Turkey. I felt great to have met them because they assisted me with interpreting from Somali to Turkey and vice versa. Diria. I can argue, sorry, can you go back the slide? Almost we finish soon. I can argue, the Turkey now is becoming a very unique country when we talk about the Somali meeting points. I can say it could be that the only country you can find all Somalis, have access without a huge restriction. They come from Middle East, from Asia, from Somalia, from the diaspora. Even in Somalia, in Mogadishu, when we talk, the main city of ethnic Somali people in the Horn of Africa, they do not have all this, easy access to Mogadishu because for the security issues, or maybe they don't like many of them to go back. But the Turkey is safe in many ways, so it's quite a very unique. Move on, please. Okay. Turkish-Somali diaspora relationships as well. I wanted to know if that a good relationship between, from country to country, from Turkey to Somalia, does exist also in the diaspora. No, the relationship is very limited, very, very weak, really. Mainly based on the customer and, service and business service-based relationship, in which, Somalis, use Turkish, furniture. They go to Turkish, restaurants because of the food. They really enjoy Turkish food. They use Turkish community, big halls for wedding or maybe for big events as well. Apart from this more technical relationship, there is no strong, relationship between the community to community. There were some cases of individual friendship, but not as a community. U.S. Somali diaspora has a good relationship with Turkish American National Steering Committee. GSD that I mentioned earlier also has some engagement with Yunus Emre Institute, particularly in London. Diaspora Voices. Assuming that the relationship isn't as strong as the one that exists in Turkey, or the strong political relationship. So that strong political relationship, has not translated into societal relationship in the diaspora. Please move on, almost to finish. Okay, recommendations and the way forward. Turkey government should prioritize Somali diaspora knowledge and skills transfer, expertise transfer, including investing, in the return of educated and professional Somali diaspora. which will contribute to the process of state recovery and the nation building. Each community, I mean, I'm talking the diaspora, each diasporic community should actually invite the other side when organizing their own national events, just to facilitate that kind of informal community relationship. The second slide. Organize Somali Turkish diaspora joint conferences and events as well to develop shared understanding and learn from each other's experience and lifestyle. Establish a joint community and friendship centers where the two community members can interact, socialize, and share experience and stories. I think African Foundation and maybe Heritage can really play a very critical role to think about such an annual, diasporic conference in the main cities, maybe Washington, DC, Minneapolis, maybe London, in Germany, something like that, in partnership with Somali diasporic communities. Turkey Somali diplomats can also play a very important role. I can say the Turkish side, it's actually trying to engage and reach out the Somali community for some reason, in one way or another, because of the facilities they have. The Somali side, it's just, very, they don't have these, abilities really to engage with the Turkish communities in the diaspora. Establish a professional Somali Turkish language, translations. Someone can make a good business here, really. Business people can really think to establish a professional, translation centers. The more the Somali diaspora visit to Turkey, the better the relationship, to grow, naturally. I could say also the more, Turkish people visit to Somalia, but practically speaking, that's not the case, given the security issue and all this stuff. I think I finished. Thank you so much. Awaiting your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yusuf, and I hope that you will stay with us 5 minutes for you to answer any questions fielded in your presentation. We've had very good 4 presentations. I'll open the floor. I think we're still within time. We started the session late, so we can stay another 10 minutes just to compensate for the time lost at the start of the session. So the 4 papers, just for my take very quickly, and then I'll open the floor. The first paper was about you've all from Ruqayya. She actually presented a very good paper on the drama side and the soap operas and all that. One particular takeaway from that is the fear of neo-Ottomanism has come back into the discussion is several times from different presenters. So I just want you to remember that. She also mentioned another thing that was mentioned in other presentations, which is the uneven presence of Turkish development in different places in Somalia, and she mentioned Hargeisa, that there is lack of presence there. The paper 2 was about the language itself, and I want you to take adding Turkish language into Somali education curriculum came from an authoritative source. Because Dr. here works for the Ministry of Education, I would like to see what people think about that idea itself. The third paper took an anthropological and sociological perspective instead of the normal political science, geopolitics, and international relations discourse. We'd like to hear from the decorated academics, international relations experts in the room to also weigh in into that discussion. And the last paper, the cultural similarities, helping the relationship between Turkey and Somalia, was very similar to what Ruqayya presented. So this is just my take of all the 4 papers, and I'll now open the floor. We'll take a maximum of 4 questions. Please put your hand up, and we'll take those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll take that one, and then you will be next, and then I'll come back.
Thank you very much for presenting enormous presentations. And my name is Said. I'm a student here in Salih Bin University, and I'm intern doctor. I'm my last year in medical school. So one question I'm asking to Ruqia, did you interview the conservative youth or people on Turkish drama? Do they think it is westernization or it is secularism invasion? And the second question is to Dr. Kalmoy. Do you think the relocating diaspora is temporary? And because we have experience in Qahira, Kenya, Dubai, and it's also depending on the ruling party in Turkey. If they change the political situation, it may be over. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll take the questions together, and then we will allow the presenters to respond. So another one there. Okay, Abdi Karim. I'll give Abdi Karim, and then I'll give it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. The papers were excellent this morning, and I thank all the presenters. A couple of comments. I was taken actually aback by the mention of a large perception of the neo-Ottoman in the crowd that was interviewed, and maybe at some point Ruqaya's excellent work can be expanded and more. We can work with universities in Mogadishu and elsewhere to see if that perception exists, because in my mind that's more of a Western conservative perception that the Ottomans are invading other countries with the idea of controlling or taking over or something to that effect. I think most countries that receive Turkish help or interaction see it positively and welcome that and do not have those fears. I have a comment on the language issue, Dr. Abdel Nasser. I think on practical grounds, this would be a very welcome thing, because many young people who come to Turkey for college, whether it's undergraduate or graduate studies, spend a year at least learning the language. And so if they had the access to the language before they came here, this would save them time and the awkwardness of learning how to get around, since most Turks don't speak anything but Turkish. And my final point is with Dr. Yusuf's work on the Somali diaspora and the relationship with the Turkish communities. I think it's very important that we expand those relations. I don't know if the concentrations of Turks as they are in Germany and other places is not where I think most Somalis are there, but it still would be a good effort to connect in the diaspora between Somalis and Turks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take another question there, and the last one here. Those two.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Firdousa. I work for the government of Canada, and I'm currently visiting as a tourist in Turkey. I like it here very much, but one of the things that the doctor pointed out, I think just being here, the most crucial thing is the language barrier. There is so much of the Turkish culture and the Turkish people that mesh well together with Somalis, but the barrier of the language is really important. So your idea of starting some sort of educational system that Somali students can learn Turkish in Somalia, I think is an excellent idea. I just wanted to also throw out there, English is a very common language. I wonder if, I don't know if this would be okay with the Turkish people because they love their language so much, but if English could be some sort of a common language between us. right? That's just a consideration. Thank you so much for your presentation. I have another quick question for the brother. I forget his name, Abdurrashid, who talked about Dakan Ellis. Yes. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is, since Ataturk turned Turkey into a sort of secular state, right? It became very secular. So although Turkey is a Muslim country by name, when you live in Turkey, it's very European feeling. You understand? The young people are still very European. They're young. There's still widespread smoking, right? There's still alcohol sold here. So I wanted to ask you, how does that mesh well with very religious, outwardly religious Somalis, right? So we come here, we say we want to come here, the mothers say, at least I can hear the adhan. I love the adhan. But what more do we get in terms of the Islamic culture here, or is it more secular?
Thank you very much for the question. And I think I said the last one here, but I'll give Professor Elmi the last one. But before you, just take a question here. Microphone. This side first, and then we'll give you the last word.
Thank you for all the good presentations. I'd like to give a comment to Abdurrashid's paper. First of all, I'd like to convey him my heartfelt condolences. My point is, I've seen less of Somalis from Middle Eastern countries being mentioned. We have, on my opinion, two kinds of Somalis who, like those who used to be in the Middle Eastern countries because of war. They used to live in Syria or Yemen or Gulf countries. And then those, the diaspora communities who, prior to the Turkish opening to Somalia, used to send their kids for the Dakan Alisting or rehabilitation to these countries. And because of developments and political developments and conflict in Egypt, in Syria, Yemen, and maybe visa restrictions and expensive life in Gulf, and the proximity of Turkey to these Western countries has maybe facilitated making Turkey more a preferred destination. I think I wanted to just add that comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'll give it to Professor Elmi, and then for gender equity reasons, I'll give it to Zainab, the last one.
Very quick comment. I really liked all four papers. I really enjoyed listening the empirical aspect of each, the way you guys approached your subject matter, and with the care, with the methodological rigor. So please keep doing that. In terms of the content of the papers, I guess I have way too many questions that can be answered here, but I'll just leave it that I think any one of the papers or the authors, I would say, should build on more in this topic. I really like it, the way, more like ethnographic nature of Abdurrashid's paper and how it looks in depth in both from theoretical perspective and from the empirical data perspective. So keep doing that job. Hopefully you have your PhD staff already. And of course, Ruqayya is on the way as well. The others are two senior scholars. So thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Ruqayya. And then we'll allow presenters to respond each question to a maximum of a minute, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. The first question is for Ruqayya. And I was wondering if you find in your analysis a difference in the responses of those who were in Mogadishu versus those who were in Hargeisa. Two, I know in the diaspora, even in Minnesota and other places, people watch Turkish drama. So I wonder if you would think about expanding this research to include the diaspora. My second question is for Abdi Nasser. You talked about Turkey becoming Dakan Elis, and I know the word Dakan Elis has a negative connotation in some sense for youth who kind of become some sort of involved in either, whether it's, a crime or, substance abuse or whatever the case might be, or are not mainly listening or behaving well. So I wonder if that is what you are kind of alluding towards in those bringing to Turkey, or whether it is in general terms of to adapt to a more somewhat, Islamic culture, even though obviously that needs in itself a definition of what do we mean, because obviously Turkey is very diverse in terms of religion and culture and so on. And for Abdul Rashid, you spoke about mainly the inclusion of the Turkish language into the curriculum. And I wonder now, I'm not aware of having any language other than probably maybe Arabic into the curriculum. So I wonder if there would be in the future more diverse languages like, Arabic, English, Turkish, and maybe, and other language into the curriculum of the education system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'll ask now the presenters to respond to those questions. Please take a minute and make it very short. We're all already over time. In the order in which you have presented, please answer the question is asked. So I'll call Ruqya first.
Thank you. The first question. Okay, so no, we only focused our research on the youth. But my perception, since I'm from Hargeisa, but originally, and I've been there for quite some time, I would say that the only people who would have a conservative approach would be old people and probably the religious sector in the government. They often talk about, anything that is outside, even slightly outside of Islamic values and Islamic culture. Those two would be expected. But of course, I think it would be really boring to conduct. We could do it, but I think it would be really boring, specifically because the majority of the Somalis in Somalia and Somaliland are youth. And when Turkey is exporting its culture and pop culture into Somalia and Horn of Africa, specifically Somali communities, Somalia, Somaliland, Puntland, maybe even Djibouti, youth have a significant focus. I would, for the lack of better words, target youth because they have a significant influence in that. So the second question, thank you. Okay, so when I mentioned neo-Ottomanism, I should have clarified that we were only speaking about recommendations for the future. I think Turkey should not take it for granted that Somali youth are positively being very, consuming Turkish culture and Turkish series in a positive way. This shouldn't be a one-way street. We're encouraging bilateral cultural exchanges, as Professor mentioned earlier. And one thing that we should know today for sure is the spread of misinformation on social media and how the algorithm is, structured in a way that bad news just spreads faster. So if Turkey is criticized by, let's say, 5, 10, maybe even 20 different Somalis or influential people in Somali communities, it's likely that the scale will really tilt because at some point, even though India's relation with Somali people wasn't so great as compared to Turkey, but Indian series was consumed for quite some time and was popular, but now Turkey has taken over. So just for the long term, 10, 15 years down the line, it's good to have more bilateral, somewhat of an equal scale of cultures and expand on and not take it for granted what we have today. The third question, okay, so we, unfortunately, I'm really, really sad about this. Initially, our target was Mogadishu, and I wish we had more resources, more respondents from people in Mogadishu, especially because of how Turkey is implementing its policies at all levels in Somalia as opposed to Somaliland. But the positive side, and I was really happy to see this in my findings, is that the youth in Hargeisa didn't care about or mind about the political relations between Somalia and Somaliland. Sorry, Somalia and Turkey. They didn't seem to discriminate, but they consumed Turkish series, enjoyed Turkish series, and the politics was probably for another topic, another sector, probably someone who is more of a politician, sorry, to say that it would be as simple as that. But they just didn't seem to associate the two. Even when we asked the political question of, you know, do you know anything about, let's say, Turkish foreign policy? How do you view Turkish foreign policy? They were not even, there wasn't even a slight indicator that the Somali youth in Hargeisa were associating Turkish series with Turkish relations with Somalis, and that was interesting. We could, however, in the long run, maybe even this year, I hope that somebody takes on this research and replicates it in Mogadishu and then does a comparative analysis, and maybe even a comparative analysis at the level of capital cities versus rural areas, and see how people in Southwest Galmudug, for example, looking at how Somalia's political relations with each region's political relations with the federal government changes quite frequently, sorry. It would be interesting to do a comparative analysis and see how maybe Galmudug or Jubaland would, the youth there would receive or consume, if at all, Turkish series. It'd be really interesting because we don't have this type of studies hasn't been done at a large scale in Somalia and Somali youth, and yet Turkish series are consumed massively. So it would be, yeah, great.
Thank you very much. Ruqayya, if you have any particular questions or want that to be expanded, the answer, please, you can approach Ruqayya separately. Now I'll give Dr. Abdel Nasser, who will also respond questions very quickly.
Mine was not also, I think, I have not asked a question, but was a comment. As I said, the study shows that Somali students have interest and desire to learn Turkish language. But, you know, the highest category who have the highest interest was the newly secondary graduated student. So I'm thinking the possibility of adding a subject in the university, not in the basic education and secondary. But I'm suggesting it as undergraduate level in Somalia. As Brother Abdurrashid says, it takes at least 1 year for students to study Turkish language. And the most students who come here, the largest part who come to study in Turkish are undergraduate student. So just I'm thinking that in addition, I also suggest that the possibility of doing or conducting much research on this so that they confirm or reject my findings. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll ask Abdurrashid Kalmoy to also respond to the questions in 1 minute. Thank you.
So thank you for the very stimulating questions.
I think you are on mute, Abdurrashid.
So for the first question, I will say that, the Somali
we still cannot hear you. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me right now? Is it okay right now?
Yes, go ahead.
So for the first, thank you for the very stimulating questions to all the questioners. So for the first question, I would like to say that the Somali diaspora is very dynamic, very mobile, and very global. And during the interviews, I realized that, they were aware that in case there's a government change or policy change in Turkey, they will relocate. And I think Somalis are very good in finding other countries to become diaspora. It's a very good talent acquired for the last 20 years. So that is it. For the Ellis issues, the other one thing I realized in the interviews is Somalis have like a very idealistic perception of Turkey. They view Turkey as this Islamic country, and I think this perception is due to the profile of the current President Erdogan and the government's policies and political rhetorics in the international politics. So they view Turkey as an Islamic country where they can raise their children, but reality is contrary to that. Turkey is as much as conservative as it's also very secular and westernized. And I have met parents here in Istanbul who have uprooted their children from high schools and primary schools in Canada and North America and and Europe and brought here so that at least they want them to be in this environment where at least there is some form of conservatism and Islam, and which is quite different from the case in the West. Some parents were complaining about the sex education and the youth culture in the West. So Turkey is quite better, but it's not the ideal like Garissa or Jigjiga or Mogadishu or Hargeisa or Djibouti. For my friend Mohammed Ibrahim, the Somali diaspora is very diverse, and actually a huge chunk come from the Middle East. People from the Middle East countries, from Dubai and so on and so forth. But for practical purpose, I was interested in the Somali diasporas that I could find, and that was a methodological strategy. And I was also not interested in the Somali diaspora from Kenya. There are many Somali Kenyans here, many Somali Ethiopians, and many Somali Djiboutians. So I was interested in Somalis from Somalia. So I think I have responded to the questions, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll give the last responses to Dr. Yusuf. Make it short. Thank you, Dr. Yusuf.
Thank you so much. I really learned a lot. There was a question, I think, about what the Somali diaspora could learn, in Turkey, as it's kind of Western, feeling environment. Learning is the feeling is the learning, basically. And learning could be formal or also informal. The formal is the education system, universities, the schools. But the most powerful learning process is the one that you can learn from the mainstream, when they go to the mosque, when they hear, the adhan, when they don't think about the halal food, all this stuff. That kind of feeling, that kind of public education, it's something really, they can learn for their, well-being. That's one thing. The term of Dhaqan Alis is really very, negative, and we really need to develop a different, terminologies. Even those, Somali children and young people who travel to Africa or in the Hargeisa, Mogadishu, anywhere in the Somali communities, do face a lot of negative, comments from their counterparts, from other children when they play with them. Just they call them, oh, you are here because of the Dhaqan Alis, because you have been, trouble, maker in the West, something like that. So finally, there was an imam who was recently, I think, was sentenced to a prison so many years in Mogadishu. He was an imam, and he was a religious Islamic leader. And interestingly, the BBC, the Somali section, did some study with him, his biography, and his, what influenced him, basically. And he said because of the influence from Indian films, he actually mentioned a specific Indian film that he learned from the, all these techniques, how he can, rob and cheat women. I think he cheated 60 Somali women in Mogadishu and he robbed them. So that's the influence of film in the negative side or positive side. Thank you. Enjoy your the forum, and I will also stay online as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that concludes the session. Let's give a round of applause to all presenters. Thank you very much. We can now break for coffee. Thank you.
Dear moderator, you can give the topic. Yeah. Sayın katılımcılar, zamanımız kısıtlı olduğu için ara vermeden bir sonraki oturuma geçeceğiz. Dear guests, because our time is limited, we are continuing with the last and next session without a break. Please stay on your seats. Sadece bir kahve su ihtiyacı varsa onu alsınlar gelsinler. Tamam. Dışarıdan yönlendirebilirsek. Tamam. Çünkü dışarıya kadar gitmiyor ses. Biz çıkarken söyledik zaten. Çoğunu hemen söyledim. Bastınız mı? Nasıl? Adrese haberi var mı? Bir oturum daha var. Hasan Hoca burada mı? Moderatör. Yani en önemlisi o Hasan Hoca. Muhammed Hasan. Muhammed Hasan. Bilmiyorum ki onu tanımıyorum. Biliyorum da göremiyorum şu an. Söyleyençine baktım ben. Nerede? Buradaydı. Arkada oturuyordu da.
Değerli misafirler, oturum başlamak üzere. Lütfen salondaki yerlerimizi alalım. Dear participants, the session is about to begin. Please take your seats. Değerli misafirler, oturum başlamak üzere. Lütfen salondaki yerlerimizi alalım.
Orada var mısın? Moderatör ve önce isimler. Lütfen.
Değerli misafirler, sempozyumumuzun son oturumu olan Türkiye-Somali Sağlık İşbirliği Kalıcı Ortaklığa Doğru başlıklı oturum başlıyor. Evet, panelistlerimizi davet ediyorum. Sayın Muhammed Hasan moderatörlüğünde Heritage Enstitüsü'nden Abdürezzak Muhammed, Sağlık Bilimleri Üniversitesi'nden Mehmet Emin Yıldırım, Esra Keles ve Profesör Doktor Hasan Hüseyin Eker ve yine Sağlık Bilimleri Üniversitesi'nden Özge Şeyma Öge ve Mahmut Talha Uçar. Sahneye davet ediyorum.
You can want. You can start it one.
Yeah, but what is the? Let me have. Bismillah, and good morning, all of you, and welcome to our session. Unfortunately, and some of panelists are not here at the ground, but they will join us on virtual base. So my name is Dr. Mahat. I'm the currently Deputy Minister of Ports and Marine Transport, Federal Government of Somalia. Having a background of medical and working last 14 years in the health sector, I'm very honored, to moderate this session and related to Turkish-Somali health cooperation toward this enduring partnership. And we will have 3 parts, and we will stand each one by one. And as you aware yesterday, maybe you are aware, but yesterday it was 19 August. And it was the day that His Excellency, the current president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, visited Somalia. And globally, it is the World Humanitarian Day on 19 August every year since 2012. No, since 2003, because there was an incident in Iraq happening, and we lost the 22 humanitarian workers. That is why the global system is on the wall, showing solidarity for that social workers that we lost, and a lot of people get injured for that incident. So I just want to share with you, each and every disaster, there is an opportunity inside. So unless that famine and devastating drought happen in Somalia, Somalia will not get the attention that we have got at that time. Yes, it is very hard, and we lost a lot of people, but at the same time, it gives you an attention that can be an opening or eye-opening to the genuine donors or partners to come and to get access to contribute your country. So it was a disaster, but at the same time, it was an opportunity for Somali people. On top of that, as much as we are in a session of the health, when you have a healthy families, you have a healthy nation, and the healthy nations can be transformed to prosperous and developed nations. So health is integral part of the life. And the well-being is very important. That's why this last session will focus on the health collaboration and cooperation between Turkey and Somalia. I will start with my colleague, Dr. Hussein, Prof. Dr. Hussein. He's currently working in the University of Health Science as a head of public health department. He graduated from Selçuk University Medical Faculty, and he worked in the Ministry of Health with different capacities. And he will cover academic profile and training experiences and career pathways of graduates of Somali Muqdisho Rajab Tayyip Erdogan Vocational School. We have got the biggest hospital there with 200 capacity, and we have trained young doctors to specialize in different specialties in the medicine. So he will say something, and he will share with us his findings regarding that. Welcome, Dr. Hassan.
Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Ben de öncelikle bu sempozyumu düzenleyen Afrika Vakfı'na ve Heritage Enstitü'ye çok teşekkür ediyorum. 2 gün boyunca çok kıymetli konuşmacılar, çok değerli konuları paylaştılar. Ben de tüm oturumları takip etmeye çalıştım ve çok önemli konular konuştu. Tüm katılımcılara, organizasyon heyetindeki tüm arkadaşlara teşekkür ediyorum. Bugünkü benim oturumumda Somali'deki sağlık eğitimi, sağlık meslek yüksek okulundaki mezun olan öğrencilerin okulla ilgili, eğitimle ilgili deneyimlerini, düşüncelerini ile ilgili bir araştırma yaptık. Onları sizlerle paylaşmak istiyorum. Öncelikle sağlık eğitimiyle ilgili Sağlık Bilimleri Üniversitesi Somali'de ne yapıyor? Bu konuda kısa bir bilgi vermek isterim. Biraz da zaman baskısı var, biliyorum bugün Cuma. O yüzden çok hızlı bir şekilde geçeceğim. Şimdi üniversitemiz ilk defa 2016 yılında Sağlık Hizmetleri Meslek Yüksek Okulu öyle eğitime başladı Somali'de. Birçok Somali arkadaşlarımızın bildiği gibi Sağlık Meslek Yüksek Okulumuz Somali'deki Recep Tayyip Erdoğan Eğitim Araştırma Hastanesi'nin hemen yanında bulunuyor. Yaklaşık 40 derslikli bir okulumuz ve o yıl öğrencilerimizi alarak eğitimimize başladık. Okulumuzda bir yıl Türkçe hazırlık eğitimi oluyor. Benden önceki konuşmacı arkadaşımız Abdülnasır da bahsetmişti. Gerçekten Somali kardeşlerimizin Türkçe'ye karşı büyük bir ilgisi var. Biz de eğitimlerimizi bir yıl Türkçe hazırlıktan sonra akademik eğitimlerimize devam ediyoruz. Bildiğiniz gibi Meslek Yüksekokulu 2 yıllık bir okul ve ara eleman yetiştiriyor. Ve biz 2017 yılında meslek eğitimlerine başlamış olduk. Diğer bir eğitim faaliyetlerimiz Sağlık Bilimleri Fakültesi kurduk. Bu yıl en son mezunlarımızı, yani 3. mezunlarımızı vererek Sağlık Meslek Yüksekokulu'nu kapatıyoruz. Ancak ondan daha fonksiyonel, ondan daha etkili olabilecek Sağlık Bilimleri Fakültesini hayata geçirmiş olduk. Bu bölümde de ebelik, hemşirelik, afet ve acil yönetimi gibi bölümlerimiz var. Bu yıl öğrencilerimiz 2. sınıflarını okuyacaklar. Üniversitemizin katkı sağladığı diğer bir alan asistan eğitimleri. Yine birçok Somali arkadaşlarımızın, kardeşlerimizin bildiği gibi Recep Tayyip Erdoğan Eğitim Araştırma Hastanesi'nde yaklaşık 136 tane Somalili kardeşlerimiz tıpta uzmanlık eğitimi yapıyorlar. 26 branşta. Dolayısıyla buradaki asistanlık eğitimini yine bizim üniversitemizin akademisyenleri tarafından eğitim müfredatları oluşturularak, eğitim programları oluşturularak bu öğrencilerimizin takibi ve uzmanlık eğitiminin daha kaliteli bir şekilde yapılmasına katkı sağlıyoruz. Bu asistan arkadaşlarımız 6 ay kadar da eğitimleri içerisinde Türkiye'ye geliyorlar ve burada rotasyon yapıyorlar. Çok farklı alanlardaki asistan kardeşlerimiz. Yine hizmet işi eğitimlerimiz var orada. Sağlık eğitimine katkı sunma adına bilimsel kurslarımız oluyor. Yine sempozyumlar ve diğer üniversitelerle bazı ortak programlar. Yine sabahki oturumda geçmişti, hatırlarsınız. İşte Türkçe eğitimini Somali'de öğreterek daha sonra Türkiye'ye gelme gibi. Şu anda biz Benadir Üniversitesi, Mogadishu Üniversitesi, Simas, City ve National Somali gibi üniversitelerle protokollerimiz var ve bu çerçevede yaklaşık 30 doktor arkadaşımıza Türkçe eğitimi orada veriyoruz. Bu arkadaşlarımız Türkçe eğitimlerini tamamladıktan sonra Türkiye'ye gelerek bizim üniversitemizde yüksek lisans ve doktora yapacaklar ve döndüklerinde kendi üniversitelerinde çalışacaklar. Yani biz bu talepleri bu üniversitenin rektörlerinden istemiştik, rica etmiştik. O üniversitelerde kendi ihtiyacı olan bölümleri ve bu bölümlerde çalışacak olan kişileri belirleyerek bizlere gönderdiler. Biz de onların Türkçe eğitimlerine orada destek sağlıyoruz. Bizim Recep Tayyip Erdoğan Sağlık Hizmetleri Meslek Yüksekokulumuz 2016 yılında açıldığını az önce ifade etmiştim. İlk yıl anestezi, biyomedikal ve görüntüleme teknikerliği programlarını açtık. Bu programları belirlerken de Somali Sağlık Bakanlığı oradaki çalışan hastane yöneticileriyle görüşerek Somali'nin ihtiyacı olan bölümlerde programlar açmayı tercih ettik ve bu bölümlere öğrencilerimizi aldık. 2018-19 eğitim öğretim yılında ilk mezunlarımızı verdik. 56 öğrencimiz mezun oldu ve bunlardan 33'ü şu anda çalışmaktadır ve 29'u bizim hastanemizde çalışmakta. Dolayısıyla 150'den daha fazlası iş imkanına sahip. Burada tabii bizim kısıtlılığımız da şu arkadaşlar, mezun olduktan sonra genelde öğrencilerimizle çok yakın temasımız olmuyor. Bu çalışmayla birlikte bu eksikliğimizi gördük. Bundan sonra mezun olan öğrencilerimizle daha yakın irtibat halinde olarak onların işe girmeleri veyahut da hizmet içi eğitimlerle daha kalifiye nasıl olabilirler? Onlar üzerinde yoğunlaşmış olacağız. Geçen bir önceki yıl ise 48 öğrencimiz mezun oldu. Geçtiğimiz yılda ise 70 öğrencimiz eczane hizmetleri, hasta bakım programı, ilk ve acil yardım programı gibi programlardan mezun olarak sağlık insan gücüne, Somali sağlık insan gücüne katılmış oldular. Toplamda 174 öğrencimiz bu yıl itibariyle sağlık hizmetleri meslek yüksekokulu'ndan mezun olmuş oldu. Az önce de ifade ettim. Sağlık bilimleri fakültemizde ebelik, hemşirelik, acil yardım ve afet yönetimi programlarımız var. Şu anda aktif olarak 107 öğrencimiz 2. sınıfa geçtiler ve 1. sınıfa da 150 öğrencimiz bu yıl eğitim öğretimine başlayacak. Bu ayın sonunda da tekrar hazırlık sınıfı için öğrencilerimizin kayıtlarını alıyoruz. Onlar da sınava tabi tutarak Türkçe eğitimlerine devam edecekler. Şimdi biz bu araştırmayı mezun olan arkadaşlardan vermiş olduğumuz eğitimin kalitesini ve işe girebilirlik oranlarını tespit etmek için yaptık. Bu araştırmamızda tabii 30 tane soru vardı sosyodemografik verilerle birlikte. İşte kampüs ve üniversitedeki sosyal hayatın memnuniyeti, akademik destek, akademik ilgi, kurumun yönetimi ve iyileştirilmesinden memnun olup olmamaları, sosyal imkanlar, kişisel gelişimlerine ve kariyer gelişimlerine katkıları nedir gibi bazı sorularımız vardı. Burada araştırmamıza 38 katılımcı katıldı. Bunların çoğu 2020 mezunuydu. Yani 2019 mezunlarına ulaşamadık. Tabii pandemi var. Bir de bu araştırmamızı biz online olarak yaptık. Face to face yapmadık. Belki bir sonraki araştırmamızı tüm mezunlarımıza bir şekilde ulaşarak daha geniş katılımlı olmasını sağlamamız gerekiyor. Yine katılımcıların büyük bir kısmı kadın cinsiyetine sahipti. Üniversitemizde tercih etmeyi %85'i tercih ettiğini görüyoruz. Yine bu mezun olduktan sonraki eğitim düzeylerinin %90'a yakın yeterli olduğunu düşünüyorlardı. Yine üniversitemizden almış oldukları eğitimlerin kendi yeteneklerini geliştirmede %81 iyi olduğunu söylüyordu. Burada belki bir önceki sabahki panele atıf olarak dikkat ederseniz arkadaşlar %97'si Türkçe eğitim almalarının kendilerine iş bulmada avantaj sağlayacağını düşünüyor öğrencilerimiz. %71'i kültürel ve sosyal aktivitelerin yetersiz olduğunu söylemişti. Biz o yüzden geçtiğimiz yıl okulumuzdaki kültürel ve sosyal sportif aktiviteleri artırdık. Futbol takımı oluşturduk. Belki önümüzdeki yıl Somali, Mogadishu genelinde üniversiteler arasında bir turnuvaya katılacağız. Yine okçuluk kulübümüz var, bilek güreşi kulübümüz var. Artı Türk kültürü ve Somali kültürünü tanıtan kermeslerimiz ve sosyal etkinliklerimizde bu açığımızı kapatmaya çalışıyoruz. Evet, yine üniversitemizi birçok iletişimin yeterli olduğunu söylüyorlar. Başka bir soru, üniversiteden mezun olduktan sonra iş bulabilmesi için önemli olduğunu söylüyor. Yani yaklaşık olarak %80-90 civarında bir memnuniyetin olduğunu görüyoruz. Yine üniversiteden mezun olduktan sonra iş imkanlarına sahip olacaklar. Şimdi aslında biz bu araştırmayı arkadaşlar 3 bölüm olarak planladık. Bir tanesi meslek yüksek okulumuzdan mezun olan öğrencilerle ilgili. Bir diğeri sağlık bilimlerinde fakültesinde okuyan öğrencilerimizle alakalı olarak. Şu ana kadar yaklaşık 400'e yakın öğrenci bizim üniversitemizde okumuş oldu. Bir diğer araştırma ise hastanemizde eğitim gören asistan doktorlarla ilgili bir araştırma. Hem fakültemizde okuyan öğrenciler hem de asistanlarla ilgili araştırmamızlarla ilgili verileri topladık. Onların şu anda analiz aşamasında. Bunlar bittikten sonra bilimsel camiaya sunmayı düşünüyoruz. Evet, burada öğrenciler genel olarak eğitimden memnun kaldıklarını ve Türkçe eğitim almalarının kendileri için ilerleyen zamanda gerek akademik kariyerlerinde gerek iş bulma imkanlarında olumlu katkı görüşünde olduklarını ifade etmektedir. Biz bu çalışmaları önümüzdeki yıllarda da belli periyotlar içerisinde tekrarlamayı düşünüyoruz. Okulumuzun fiziksel imkanı, sportif faaliyetler, kültürel faaliyetler, hocaların eğitim yöntemi, metodoloji, ya eğitime ait ne kadar parametre varsa bunları tekrar sorgulayarak daha geniş bir kitleye ulaşarak bunlarla ilgili araştırma yapıp bu veriler ışığında da eksik olan alanlarımızı geliştirmeyi planlıyoruz. Ben dinlediğiniz için çok teşekkür ediyorum. Vama Santi.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan, for the nice presentation, focusing on the workforce for health, whether it's mid-level staff, which is the midwives, nurses, and the technicians, and also the other part of the medical doctors who are going to specialize in different specialties in medicine. I will come back to Dr. Awais, who is going to represent here, and our brother Abdirazak, to present the paper of Abdirazak. And Abdirazak is, let me go to the bio of Abdirazak. Abdirazak Aden is a senior researcher at Heritage Institute, and he joined it before he joined to HIPS, and he used to be a tutor in Wits University in South Africa. He holds this M and Master of Political Science and from Wits in South Africa. So he will focus the role of Turkey in reviving Somali health system, which we have been covered, and one part of it, which is the workforce or the human resource for health, and from Dr. Hassan. Dr. Awais, I think your bio have been presented yesterday. He is a PhD in economy, and he also a senior researcher in HIPS. So I would like to give you the floor. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning to all of you, all protocols observed. And my name is Weiss, and of course I'm not here to present my paper. I'm here to highlight and summarize one of the key issues in the paper of my colleague, Abdulrazak Mohammed. And I'm not going through the whole paper, but I would like to highlight the key issues that my friend highlighted in his paper. And my friend's paper is titled On the Role of Turkey in Reviving Somalia's Healthcare System. And my friend used qualitative analysis, and he has interviewed one of the two biggest hospitals in Somalia, Turkey, and rehabilitated for the past 1 decade. And he has also done observation and also field visits to see the physical infrastructures and the facilities and the services that Turkey Brothers is providing. And in fact, before he discussed on the literature on the issue of the healthcare system that Turkey is contributing to Somalia, he cited and adopted one of the prominent theories of foreign aid, which is dead aid by Tembesa, and one of the African economists, which firstly criticizes that foreign aid does not contribute much to the development in Africa. So my friend also cited one of the key issues that Somalia struggled for the past few decades without functioning government. He cited a global health index in 2016 that Somalia is one of the worst healthcare services in the world, and also one of the healthcare outcomes and in terms of healthcare and comparisons with the rest of the world. And for the finding of the paper, the author highlighted that Turkey is contributing not only managing the hospitals, but also providing a skill development, because a lot of Somali health professionals are actually trained by the Turkish and on behalf of Somali government. Turkey is providing a number of healthcare professionals in Somalia. And he also highlighted that the Turkey is also contributing in terms of providing healthcare technology to Somali and hospitals, which is Erdogan and also Yerdemel Hospital. And my friend also discussed it on the management, which is really, Turkey has done a tremendous job in providing a very effective management in the healthcare system in Somalia. And the two hospitals and treats per day around 200 to 300 patients. And in those two hospitals, my friend has conducted in his research. And I would like to go through the conclusion of the paper and also the policy recommendation that my friend provided. And my friend concluded his paper that Turkey's intervention in Somali healthcare system has not been only a success story, but also disapproves the two fundamental theories. One is the one I mentioned, the dead aid on arrival on the African continent, and the second is that the development assistance will not remain ineffective without political stability. In both cases, the Turkey contribution to Somalia's healthcare system is evidently exceptional, and in fact, it's a success story to Somali people. Turkey's contribution, although Somalia is still a long way to go in making a basic healthcare accessible to its people, the Ankara's help in hand is in producing healthcare practitioners, transfer of skills, providing modern medical technology and equipment, building and also rebuilding hospitals, which Yerdemeli and Erdogan Hospital are examples, are really leading examples to Somali people. Both hospitals also are lifelines for the Somali nation as far as the provision of healthcare service are concerned. My friend proposed a menu of policy options One is the Erdogan Hospital requires an urgent expansion. The hospital receives more patients than it can accommodate. So he urged that the hospital should be expanded so it can accommodate number of Somali and patients. The second policy option he proposed was building another hospital in the capital city of federal member states, where Erdogan Hospital can provide and the guidance and advice so they can actually learn from the lessons and how the effective management of the Erdogan Hospital and implemented in Mogadishu. The other policy recommendation my friend proposed was Somalia has neither the manpower nor the financial capacity. So the Turkish government must continue to manage the Erdogan Hospital. The transfer of the hospital to the Somali government will automatically reverse the gains made in reviving the healthcare of Somalia. The final policy consideration he proposed was the Somali government should offer a reliable and standard salary or creating incentives for the Somali healthcare professionals to observe and retain the rare skilled healthcare professionals in the public sector. On the other hand, the Turkish government should also ensure the placement of these specialists in the public hospitals and that the standard salary is offered to them. Otherwise, the Turkish huge material and human investment in training to revive Somali's healthcare system would be late or would reverse back the past 1 decade success story of the Turkish privately supported Somali government. That's all from what I would like to highlight my friends and research paper. Over to you, Dr. Mahat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Awis, and we really appreciate the nice findings of our brother Abdirasak. We are going to move on and we'll go to the next agenda, which is the health tourism from Somalia to Turkey, on perspective of economic volume and encountered problems. Suggested by Ozg Ziama. He is graduate from Yadi Tebi University Faculty of Medicine. She is currently a research assistant doctor in University of Health Science, Hamidia Faculty of Medicine, Department of Public Health. She's going her PhD. And with her colleague also, Muhammad Talha, an MD, and he's a medical doctor, graduated from Istanbul University Faculty of Medicine. He worked in various hospitals as a doctor. He currently research assistant doctor in University of Health Science, Hamidia, Faculty of Medicine, Department of Public Health. I think they will join us virtually. If you are hear me, can you hear me?
Merhabalar, duyabiliyorum.
Thank you very much. I would like to give you the floor and welcome to the panel. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Teşekkür ederim. Herkese merhaba. İsmim Özge Seyma Öge. Sağlık Bilimleri Üniversitesi Halk Sağlığı Anabilim Dalı'nda araştırma görevlisi, uzmanlık öğrencisiyim. Hemen sunumu paylaşıyorum. Evet, bizim çalışmamız başlar. Somali'den Türkiye'ye yapılan sağlık turizmi, ekonomik hacmi ve karşılaşılan sorunlar. Çalışmamızda Somalili hastaların sağlık turizmi için Türkiye'yi tercih etme nedenlerini, turizmin ekonomik hacmini, sağlık turizminde yaşadıkları sorunları ve olası çocuklarla başladık. Sağlık turizmi tanımından başlamak istiyoruz. Bireylerin kendi ihtiyaçlarını karşılama kapasitelerini arttırmak ve birey olarak kendi yaşamlarında hem de topluma da görmesini sağlayacak olan tıbbi ve sağlık faaliyetler, fiziksel, zihinsel ve veya ruhsal sağlığa katkı sağlayan turizm türlerinin hepsine sağlık turizmi diyoruz. Günümüzde sağlık turizmi kapsamında çıkan milyon insan bulunuyor ve dünyadaki sağlık turizmi harcamalarının yaklaşık 500 milyar dolar olduğu düşünülmekte. Ülkemizdeki sağlık turisti sayılarına bakacak olursak, 2013 yılında sağlık turizmi kapsamında ülkemizi 267.401 kişi ziyaret etmiş. Bu sayı 2016'da 377.384'e, 2019'da 662.87'ye çıkmıştır. Tabii pandemi nedeniyle yılında bu sayı düşmüş. 388.150 düşmüş. 2021 yılının ilk çeyreğinde ise 10.716 kişi sağlık turizmi ülkemize gelmiştir. Sağlık turizmi gelirlerine bakacak olursak, 2013 yılında ülkemizdeki sağlık turizmi geliri 772.901 Amerikan doları olmuş. 2016 yılındaki gelir ise 715.438 dolar olmuş. 2019'da da bu sayı 1.065.105 dolara çıkmış ve 2021 yılının ilk çeyreğinden elde edilen gelir ise 196.734.000 dolar olmuştur. Ülkemizde 2023 yılında 1,5 milyon sağlık turisti ve 10 milyon sağlık turistlerine ulaşmak hedeflenmektedir. Somali özelinde baktığımızda Somali 2016 yılında 46, 2017'de 143, 2018'de 691, 2019'da 1668 ve 2020 yılında 1852 hasta ülkemize gelmiştir. Diğer Afrika ülkeleriyle karşılaştırdığımızda diğer Afrika ülkelerinden 2016 yılında 975 hasta, 2017'de 9290, 2018'de 17.500 gelmiştir. Somali'den Türkiye'ye yapılan sağlık turizminden elde edilen gelire baktığımızda 2016 yılında bu sayı 207.138 TL, 2017'de 313.466 TL, 2018'de 1.622.522 TL, 2019'da 14.014.080, 2020'de ise 12.446.000 TL olmuştur. Çalışmamızda zaman darlığından bazı kurumlar, kuruluşlardan daha ayrıntılı bir toplanmasına, başka çalışmalar yapılmasına ihtiyaç var. Sağlık turizmine katkıda bulunan faktörlere baktığımızda sağlık sigortaları, çeşitli hizmetleri, operasyonları tutması, bunun sonucunda cepte harcamalar artması, tıbbi işlemler için geçen bekleme süreleri olması, fiyat farklılıkları, dünya genelinde yaş nüfusun artması ve sağlık tarzının daha geniş belirlenmesi sağlık turizminin gelişmesine katkıda bulunuyor. Hastaların kendi ülkelerindeki standartta ve hizmet alamama endişesi, bireysel ekonomik nedenler, dil sorunu ve vize sorunu gibi problemlerse tam tersine bu gelişmeyi engel oluyor. Türkiye hasta hareketliliğine baktığımızda ülke bazında 7 ana gruba ayırabiliyoruz. Bunlardan birincisi Yunanistan, Bulgaristan, Suriye gibi akrabalık nedeniyle olduğu ülkeler. Almanya, Hollanda, Fransa gibi Türk nüfusun yoğun olduğu ülkeler. Libya, Irak, Balkan ülkeleri, Orta Asya'daki Türk Cumhuriyetler gibi altyapı ve hekim yetersizliği nedeniyle hizmet sorunu yaşayan, gelişmekte olan ülkeler. İngiltere, Almanya, Amerika gibi sağlık hizmetlerinin pahalı olduğu ülkeler. İngiltere, Hollanda, Kanada gibi uzun bekleme süreleri olan ülkeler. Fransa, İngiltere, İrlanda, Almanya sigorta sistemlerinin geri ödeme kapsamına almadığı hizmetlerin olduğu ülkeler. Ve son olarak Orta Doğu ülkeleri, Balkan ülkeleri gibi özellikle hizmetlere talebin yüksek olduğu ülkeler şeklinde 7 ana gruba ayırabiliyoruz. Sebep. Hastaların ülkemize gelme nedenlerine bakacak olursak, ülkemizin coğrafi konumu ve ulaşım olanakları sağlık turizmi açısından önemli bir yere ve potansiyele sahip oluyor ülkemiz. Yakın uçuş mesafesi, uygun tedavi maliyetleri, kalifiye personel, bekleme süresinin olmaması, modern tıbbi teknoloji, sosyo-kültürel benzerlik ve eşlik eden diğer turistik faaliyetlerin çeşitliliği hastaların ülkemize gelme nedenleri arasında oluyor. Bununla birlikte koordinasyon eksikliği, tanıtım yetersizliği, yabancı dil sorunu, aracı kurum eksikliği ve karışık mevzuatlar ülkemizde sağlık turizmi gelişimini olumsuz etkileyen faktörlerden. Yine Somali özelinde baktığımızda Somali'den Türkiye'ye sağlık turizmi gerçekleştiren sağlık profesyonelleriyle yaptığımız görüşmelerde Türkiye'ye sağlık turizmi yapılmasını kolaylaştırıcı faktörleri 4 ana başlıkta gruplamışlardır. Bunlardan bir tanesi kurumsal, deneyimli ve yüksek kalitede sağlık hizmeti sunulması. Bir diğeri istenilen branşa, istenilen hekime kolaylıkla erişilebilir olması. Randevu almanın kolay olması ve Türk hekimlerin başarılı ve bilimsel yönünün güçlü olması şeklinde 4 ana başlıkta sıralamışlardır. Somalili hastaların Türkiye'yi tercih etme nedenlerine bakarsak, bunlardan bir tanesi iklim şartlarını beğenmeleri, özellikle de yaz aylarında tercih ettiklerini belirtmişlerdir. Türkiye ile ortak dini değerlerinin olması, daha önce hizmet alan çevrelerindeki kişilerin olumlu kanaatleri ve Türkiye'nin sağlık hizmetlerinin erişilebilirlik konusunda daha kolay olması şeklinde tercih edenleri olarak sıralamışlardır. Somali'den Türkiye'ye yapılan sağlık turizminde yaşanan sorunlar ise ülkeler arasında politik, ekonomik, kültürel farklılıklar bulması, ülkelerin ulusal sağlık sistemleri hastaları tatmin etmelerinde farklılık olması, yani hasta beklentisindeki farklılıklar, dil farklılıkları ve duygusal destek ihtiyacı ana başlıklarında sıralamışlardır. Duygusal destek ihtiyacı konusunda Somalili bazı hastalar bilmedikleri bir çevreden sağlık hizmeti almak istemediklerini belirtmişlerdir. Arkadaş ailesinin yanında tedavi olmak istediklerini belirtmişlerdir, ifade etmişlerdir. Somali Türkiye arasında geliştirmeye yönelik önerilerimize bunları da 3 ana başlıkta toplayabiliriz. Bunlardan birincisi dil bariyerinin aşılması, hastanelerde tercüman hizmeti, uluslararası standartlara olarak akreditasyon gerekli yasal düzenlemelerin, son olarak da Somali'nin tanıtım faaliyetlerinin artırılması şeklinde söyleyebiliriz. Ekonomik olarak gelişmiş ülkelerde hasta bekleme sürelerinin ve tedavi maliyetlerinin artması, bu nedenle de kaliteli sağlık daha ucuz sunabilen gelişmiş olan ülkelere yönelik sağlık turizmi talebindeki artışı Türkiye'deki sağlık turizmi gelişimine yönelik bir fırsat olarak dinlediğiniz için teşekkür ederim.
Thank you, Dr. Rozgi, and we really appreciate, unless your colleague is also going to top up what you have said, or you are done as a team.
Sesinizi alamadım.
Okay, thank you very much. We will have a couple of minutes to collect your questions and comments. But before we go to the question and comment session, I would like to wrap up the 3 papers, mainly what they were talking about, which is very important to build our health system and to have a healthy nation, to transform our nation to a developed and prosperous nation. And there are some case studies across the globe that the health can be used as a tool of peace, health for peace, like the way of education for peace. Because when the people are very healthy, maybe their even mindset and their thinking and approach of thinking is going to be different from those who are underprivileged or are underserved when it comes to health and education. And to develop a nation, health and education is very important. And they are overlapping each other. Unless you educate the people, you cannot build your health system in terms of workforce for health. And when you are going, the three papers are complementing each other on perspective of building of health system, which is very important. And we have to focus the 6 building blocks of the health system, which is the governance part of it, which is the strategies, policies, acts, and the coordination, national level and regional level and the global level. The second is the human resource for health, which is the workforce, which has been covered by my colleague, Dr. Hassan, which is very important and the integral part of the health system, to have the mid-level staff and the doctors also in primary level or secondary level or tertiary level. The other thing which is Dr. Awais and Dr. Ox mentioned it is the service delivery, which is the integral part of the 6 building blocks, which the health tourism and the hospitals that the study of Abdulrazak have been mentioned. It comes under that portfolio, which is the service delivery in 3 different levels, which is the primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, and the tertiary healthcare. And the tourism goes to the tertiary healthcare, because once you have the basic things, the primary things, you have to seek better service, and either it is secondary, or tertiary level. And that's why, you know, she was comparing the last year is the patients who were coming to Turkey for health profession. And on top of that is the health financing, which is very important for our country, because we are one of the states that we are one of the leading states for the mother mortality rate, child mortality rate, infant mortality rate. And we can take as a study case for Turkey, because back in 1993, the mother mortality rate, child mortality rate of this country was very high. And there was a health transformation program in Turkey in back 2003, which shifted, you know, very excellent way from 38, you know, child mortality rate every 1,000 child, they used to lose, you know, 38. But now it is in 17, the data that I have, and they are losing 17 child in every 1,000, you know, birth or child. So which is very amazing. And the ruling party has also used that, you know, health transformation as a national agenda, which worked for them. So why not for Somalia? So the other thing is the back Somalia, the Recep Tayyip Erdogan Hospital, which is a Somali Turkish Research and Training Hospital, is producing us for a workforce, which is trained, whether it's mid-level staff, the nurses, the midwives, the technicians, and also the doctors. So I would like to give the floor to you for comments and the questions. We are running out of time, but so far so good, because we have squeezed our time to be on track. And as much as it's Friday, we will collect some questions and comments.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Dr. Zikriya Hurre. I am a medical doctor from Banadr University. First, I want to thank the organizers of this symposium, which is revising the last decade of Turkey and Somali relations, Africa Foundations and Heritage Institute. I also want to thank the speakers of this session. And I have a comment and one suggestion. First of all, I will start my comment. Revining Somali health system, Turkey has fundamental role. When our central government collapsed and destroyed the government system, especially the health system, and the hospitals become resident to the displaced people, and medical equipment and instruments were sold by the world leaders. The health workers, especially senior and junior doctors, ran away from our country due to the civil war. In 2002, some of the senior doctors, especially the doctors graduate from Somali National University, were established the first private medical university, which is Banadr University, that I graduated from 2015. From 1991 up to 2002, there is no health system in Somalia. Not only health system, there is no hospitals. The people are dying bleeding due to the gunshot. The people are dying due to the people are dying dehydration due to the diarrhea and vomiting. The people are dying stroke due to the high blood pressure. The people are dying cardiac arrest due to the cardiac problem. The people are dying coma due to the shock and high blood sugar. The mothers are dying bleeding due to the postpartum hemorrhage. So that was very difficult situation in our country and our people. In 2002 up to 2010, there was private clinic and pharmacies which was opened by some of the senior doctors who back to our country.
Sorry, Dr. Secretary, to stop you. If you can quickly go to your recommendation or suggestion, I think old people have all that data. We have been suffering for a long time.
Okay, Matt, I will add my comment. I was one of the first assistant doctors that took the Recep Tayyip Erdogan Hospital in 2016. I was the first resident doctor, special obstetric and gynecology. When I come to the hospital, I don't know how to make a suture. I don't know how to make a dressing. After 6 months of training, of head training for the Turkish doctors, especially the specialty doctors, professors, I started to treat the patients. After 1 year, I went to the operation theater and I was doing cesarean because I am an obstetric and gynecology doctor. So Turkey has a fundamental role of our health system. So we want to thank and we want to say the Turkish people and their leaders, Allah razı olsun. Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Çok teşekkür ederiz.
Thank you for your appreciation.
And I will add one of my suggestion come from the Somali community who are living in Turkey. And you know, and as you know, Turkey has not invested in only Somali. Also, Somalis are investing in Turkey. You know, the last 4 years, Somalis family are coming in Turkey and living in here. So why Somali people, why Somali diaspora are coming in Turkey? They are 3 reasons they are coming. Because Turkey is close to Europe, you know. When you are coming from London Heathrow Airport and coming to Istanbul Airport, it takes 2 hours. So it is easier. Somalis parents.
That's number one. Go to number 2, please.
Okay. Number 2 is Turkey is a Muslim country, as you know.
Go to number 3, please.
As you know, the European countries they started a period which is related to the gender and sexual. So Somalis parents are running their children to Turkey.
Thank you.
So number 3 is we believe as Somalis, Turkey is our second home country. So there is that way I come in Somalis family in here. So the last 1 year, the Somalis family are facing obstacle which related to the resident permanent ikamat. They are giving reject to the Somalis families. So I'm requesting the Africa Foundation and the Minister of Interior, Mr. Sulaiman Soylu, and the President of Turkey, please, this is not me, this is Somalis families. Please, don't give us rejected to the resident permanent.
Thank you very much.
This is our second country.
Well
Thank
noted.
you.
Thank you very much. Any other question or comments? Yes.
Ben Tülyo konuşacağım. Bu sefer de Hasan Hocam da burada. Teşekkür ederim sunumlarınız için. Sayit Muhammed, Sağlık Bilimlerinden intern doktor. Hasan Hocam da benim halk sağlığı profesörüm. Şimdi birinci soru Hasan Hocam'a, iki soruyu Hasan Hocam'a soracağım. Bir yorum da Doktor Avis'e söyleyeceğim. Hasan Hocam, bu mezun olan arkadaşlar, yüksekokuldan mezun olan arkadaşlar acaba Recep Tayyip Erdoğan Hastanesi'nde iş bulabiliyorlar mı? Ya da bu bulma oranı ne kadar? Ya da bunun dışında yardım eli de yani Türk hastanelerinde iş bulabiliyorlar mı? Onu soracaktım. İkinci soru da 10 yıl sonra Somali'de sadece tek bir tane hastane var. Turkey-Somalia Hastanesi. Bunu neden çoğaltmıyoruz? Ya da çünkü giden biliyor, orası çok yoğun ve Somali'de çok tedavi olmak isteyen hasta var. Bunun diğer eyaletlerde, eyalet başkentlarda Türkiye'nin bu kapasitesinin olduğunu biliyorum. Bunun çoğaltma imkanı var mı ya da böyle bir düşünce var mı merak ediyorum. Dr. Aviz da şöyle bir şey yorumda bulunmuş, onun arkadaşının sunumunda. Hastanenin Somali yönetimine transfer edilmesi kazanımlara geri götürür diye bir şekilde bahsetmiş. Ben bunun yanlış olduğunu düşünüyorum. Çünkü bizde bir yönetim şekli ve hastane idare etme şeyini öğrenmemiz gerekiyor. Bunu Türkiye'de de Kurtuluş Savaşı'ndan sonra yaptı. Sıfırdan hastaneler kurarak, sağlık sistemi kurarak başardı. Ben yönetimin devredilmesi gerektiğini düşünüyorum. Teşekkür ederim.
Okay. Yeah, give it to him.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks all Africa Foundation and Heritage to organize this event. I need to add like some comments about the health, as we are talking about the health now. And we know Somali communities, they come to Turkey for health tourism. And they're facing a lot of issues. We just need like technical support. So we know lack of translation sometimes in the hospitals, the patient and the doctors, sometimes they are misunderstanding each other. So I'm suggesting like to create an office, just suggesting under the embassy umbrella. We have a lot of attaches in the embassies. Some of them are not in faction. So this health is very important in Turkey. A lot of Somali communities are coming here. So if we can get like health attache, or you can name it, whatever is possible, then they can start the process from the home country, who is coming and all the list they get. Then when they come here to, they will receive from the airport or whatever, then they can add or create a team who is handling only that issue in terms of translation, in terms of doctors who knows the issues and the cases that the patient suffering from, so they can deliver. Sometimes when the patient meets to the doctor, he cannot even explain what he's feeling, what is the problem he's feeling. And sometimes they can get a wrong medicine, so they can cause a lot of issues. So to create a team who can, part of them are translators, doctors who know the cases and the health. I think that issue is very important, and I hope to be noted in the meeting.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any other question or comments? Okay, it looks like there is no more. Yes, give it to her.
Thank you so much. My name is Bisma Abdullahi Ali. I have a master degree in public health at Edith University. Now I'm PhD candidate. Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation and beautiful, everything is beautiful, really. You did a great job. I really want to ask a question, Professor Hassan. I want to know, I'm curious about, there is a lot of people, Somali, poor people who can't afford to treat, themselves or maybe come into Turkey. Is there any agreement between Somali or Turkish government for treating those people freely in Turkey? And if there is agreement, is there a special way that you use those people for bringing here and treating freely? that's my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. If there is no any more questions or comments, I would like to give back to the panelists. I will start from Dr. Hassan, Prof. Hassan, to address the questions that have been asked.
Teşekkürler. Öncelikle Doktor Sait'in sorusu için başlayayım. İlk yıl 2019'da mezun olanların %50'den daha fazlası hastanede istihdam edildi, çalışıyor. Dışarıdaki sağlık sektöründe ne kadar çalıştığını bilmiyoruz. Çünkü irtibatlarımız zayıf. Bundan sonra belki onu güçlendirmemiz gerekiyor. Ama biz zaten bu bölümleri açarken Somali'nin ihtiyacı olan bölümleri açtığımız için diğer arkadaşların da büyük bir oranda çalışma hayatına başladıklarını tahmin ediyorum. İkinci soru için 10 yıl sonrası için derslerinde de hatırlarsınız önemli olan, meslektaşım da az önce ifade etti, birinci basamak sağlık hizmetleri. Yani şu anda Somali'de özel sektör pik yapmış vaziyette. Yani devletin hastaneleri, sağlık, insan gücü, sağlık sistemi, yönetimi, altyapısı, maliyesi vesaire gibi güçlendirilmesi gerekir diye düşünüyorum. Bunu yaparken de özellikle birinci basamak sağlık hizmetlerine eğer ağırlık verilirse o zaman bulaşıcı hastalıklara, anne ölümleri, bebek ölümleri ve diğer sağlık sorunlarının önüne geçmiş oluruz. Çünkü birinci basamak sağlık hizmetleri maliyeti daha az, etkinliği daha fazla. Dolayısıyla biz yani Türkiye veya Somali halkı için söylüyorum, onlarca, yüzlerce üçüncü basamak sağlık hizmeti sunmuş olsak bile birinci basamak sağlık hizmetleri yeterli olmadığı müddetçe bunun önü alınamaz. Hem maliyeti daha fazladır, sürdürülebilir de imkansız diye bir düşünüyorum. Üçüncüsü halk sağlığıyla ilgili bir soru vardı ama ben tekrarlama imkanı var mı acaba? Kaçırdım galiba.
It was for poor patients.
Pardon. Evet.
Is there a
Şimdi
criteria
evet.
for
Okay. I remember that. Var. Somali ile Sudan arasında ücretsiz hasta anlaşması var. Türkiye'nin birçok ülkeyle var. Özellikle gelişmekte olan ülkelerde. Bunu Sağlık Bakanlığımız belirliyor. Sanıyorum Somali için belki 100'dür, belki 200'dür. Şu anda bilmiyorum rakamları. 250 olmuş. Evet. Çünkü her ülke için ayrı bir kontenjan var. Bunu oradaki yöneticiler ve hastanın durumuna göre yöneticiler belirliyor diye düşünüyorum. Teşekkürler.
Thank you very much. On top of that, regarding the poor patients criteria, there is a quota allocated for poor patients, and the Minister of Health of Somalia, federal government of Somalia, is the one who is managing. But you can understand, that limited number and the demand. Always demand is unlimited, and the resources are very limited. On top of that, there must be a very tight coordination. Those poor patients who are coming here, because the assistance and the support is not starting from here, it must be started from there because of the travel budget and all that things and the accommodation. So there must be a mechanism and a way that the Somali government is focusing to assist those poor patients, and it's very important. Dr. Awis, you can address the questions that have been asked from your papers.
Thank you very much. I think there's no question, but one of the colleagues mentioned that why Somalia is not given the opportunity to manage the hospitals that Turkey is managing. My friend's argument, Abdulsaq, is not about given the opportunity for Somali government, because the hospital and Erdogan hospital is a public hospital. So, and the question is, the argument is, are we ready? The Somali is ready to take charge in terms of our capability, in terms of managing, in terms of the capacity of our public sector in managing those hospitals. That is the actual argument that my friend raised in the paper. It's not about giving the Somalis to manage. Of course, at the end of the day, there will be a time that we will be able to manage our affairs, not only for public health, but also other public services. So, and the argument is, are we ready? Do we have the capacity? Do we have the resources in terms of financial resource and human resource? So that's the argument. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And on top of that, regarding there was a protocol between the two countries regarding how many areas have the Recep Tayyip or Somali Turkish Research and Training Hospital will be run for the Turkish. It was 5 years for the initial time. And then, we have to prepare the other requirements, to run the hospital smoothly and properly. And to develop the technicians in each and every sector, not only, but they are using the high technology like the CT scan, MRI in the imaging department, and also in the laboratory department, in the also diagnostic department, overall like endoscopy, laparoscopy, all that things. So when we are ready, there will be a handover from the Turkish to the Ministry of Health, fully run to the hospital. And that was, I think, it was 5 years the first time. And that discussion is going on between two ministries, the Minister of Health in Turkey and the Minister of Health in Somalia. And regarding the public-private partnership, is a common, that small incentives that the people or the beneficiaries pay out pocketing is something which can stay in the health system. The health is very, very hard burden, to maintain unless there is a small certain level of contribution. But those countries which is well established, the way that they covered these concerns and challenges was the teams, insurance teams, which is gold, brown, and like green, yellow, and to cover those people who cannot able to, or who cannot avoid to pay the consultation fees or the contributions. So it's up to us. We would like to wrap up, but Dr. Sekiri raises the issue which is not related to our session, which is the health, but it's cross-cutting issue. Health will be part of the problem that you raised regarding the issue of the visa, but there are some officers and colleagues and also the professionals who are here. Then that kind of challenges we can have a separate meeting to raise, because we represent you as a government officers to sort out any problem and the crisis that you are facing here in the country and back in Somalia. And thank you for raising the concerns and the challenges among our community. Can we give does Dr. Ozji is still online? Sorry, I have to be fair enough as a moderator. I forget to give you a chance. If you would like to address some of the questions in the arena of the health tourism, I will give you 2 minutes. Over to you, Doctor. We cannot hear you well, and there was a bad connection before.
Şu an duyabiliyor musunuz? Tamam.
Sure.
Direkt soru yoktu diye hatırlıyorum. Öneriler vardı. Tabii en büyük sorunlardan biri dil farklılığı. Bu çok probleme yol açıyor. Bazı özel hastaneler bu konuda iyi hizmet veriyor. Tercüman hizmeti verebiliyor. Bunun için belki hani kamu özel işbirlikleri arttırılabilir. Çünkü sadece hani özel hastaneye gelinmiyor ya da kozmetik nedenlerle gelinmiyor. Ya da paket hizmet tarzı hizmetler arttırılabilir. Yani böyle uçak biletinin, konaklamanın, tercüman hizmetlerinin birlikte olduğu böyle birkaç çeşit hizmetin bir arada olduğu paket hizmetler şeklinde hizmetler sunulabilir. Benim diyeceklerim bu kadar. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And as much as we are out of the time, I would like to request to give a big clap for the panelists and the presenters.
Sayın katılımcılar, Mehmet Köse Beyefendi ve Afyer Elme Beyefendi birazdan kapanış konuşmalarını gerçekleştirecek.
Evet, kıymetli misafirler, kıymetli dostlar, katılımcılar. Bu 2 günlük, 1,5 günlük programımızın sonuna geldik. Ben öncelikle sözü kapanış için Sayın Doktor Afyari'ye vermek istiyorum. Heritage Institute for Policy Studies'in direktörü. Professor, floor is yours. First, to close the session, the program.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody who made this interesting conference possible. For those who have supported financially, those who have contributed scientifically. As I just mentioned earlier with the TRT interview, prior, we had scientific committee that have assessed papers or paper proposals, and then later on gave feedback to the people who committed studies. We want to thank them. A number of them are not here. I cannot just name names, but I can tell you that a number of professors who are not here have helped us in looking the paper proposals. Some who are here also have helped. Professor Brise was one of the people who I mean, has looked at most of the proposals and critiqued and asked people to improve. Abdurrashid and others also has done. So I want to thank all of those that have contributed to this success conference for that. Number two, I wanted also to thank Africa Foundation and its leadership for leading this effort. And actually, first of all, they were the ones who conceived it, came up with the idea, said, you know what, 10 years have gone, so what have we done right? What have we done wrong? And it's not just Turkey as an agent and Somalia as a receiver. We are talking about mutual relations here. So what do we learn from this? Are there areas that we improve? Are there areas that we have done right that needs to be also scaled or even, I mean, kept? So this was the idea. They came up with the idea, and it went like almost 7-8 months that the project has been going on. I want to thank Mehmet for his leadership on this issue. And finally, I want to thank researchers, young and old, who authored these wonderful papers that you have been actually listening to last 2 days. And diverse from economy to politics, security, to culture. There was actually a full coverage in this. And the model that has been chosen was non-emotional, just, you know, one perspective on propaganda thing. We were just critically looking at the issue, saying that
there are something that needs to be fixed in this area or in that area. So I really, really appreciate the researchers that have done, this wonderful work. Finally, I want to particularly thank 3 people who were here with us, because as you know, there were 20 papers and 3 of our colleagues were not able to come in. So 3 people just presented their papers, Dr. Abdi Hirsi, Dr. Awais, and Ruqayya Abdurrahman has done this. So I really want to thank you as well for doing an extra or another load of work as well. So overall, also, and finally, I wanted to thank all of those participants who have been here, critiquing, listening to the presentations, responding to it, giving comments. I think this was a learning venture for all of us. I learned a lot, and I am assuming that many of you did as well. So I really, really thank you, everybody who made this wonderful opportunity a success.
Evet, çok teşekkür ederim Profesör Elmi. Evet, kıymetli dostlar, hem salonda bulunan 1,5 gündür programı ilgiyle izleyen arkadaşlar, hem de Zoom üzerinden, YouTube üzerinden, Twitter üzerinden programı takip eden arkadaşlar, hakikaten bu programı 10-11 ay önce planlandığındaki hedeflere ulaşmamızda büyük katkıları oldu. Burada birinci hedef Türkiye-Somali son 10 yılını analiz etmek, anlamak. Bu anlamak, yani Profesör Elmi'nin ifade ettiği gibi doğrudan araştırmaya dayalı olarak ancak mümkün olabilirdi. Bunu sağladığı için araştırmacı arkadaşlara çok çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Burada özellikle Profesör Afyara'nın kişisel katkısı çok önemli bizim için, çok değerli oldu. Birçok araştırmacı arkadaşımızı kişisel olarak bir anlamda onun mentörlük yaptı, onları yönlendirdi. Birçok makale, birçok tebliğ önerisi gelmişti. Elimizdeki imkanlar ve programın konsepti ve yapabileceklerimiz çerçevesinde 20 araştırmayla sınırlı kaldı. Ama hemen hemen birçok alanda kapsadığını düşünüyoruz. Bu aşamada araştırmacılardan beklentimiz inşallah en kısa zamanda buradaki öneriler, eleştiriler, tekliflerle paperlarının, makalelerini güncelleyip 1 Eylül'e kadar bize iletmeleri. 1 Eylül'e kadar bize iletilen makaleleri biz tekrar üzerinden geçeceğiz. Editörlük sürecini başlatacağız. İnşallah en kısa zamanda, ki bunu hedefimiz Ekim ayı. Ekim ayında da Türkçe ve İngilizce olarak ilk başta 2 kitap halinde yayınlamak ve tüm Türkiye ve dünya kamuoyunun önüne bunları sunmak. Afrika Vakfı'nın amacı, temel amaçlarından aslında birisini karşılayan bir çalışma oldu. Afrika Vakfı'nın en temel hedefi Türkiye'nin Afrika ilişkilerinde politika önerisi geliştirebilecek bir kapasiteye ulaşmak. Türkiye-Afrika ilişkilerinin gelişiminde insanlar arasında, uygulamacılar arasında ve araştırmacılar arasında bir köprü oluşturmak. Policy oriented, yani politika merkezi bir çalışma, ama bunun da tabii ki araştırmaya, yani research'e dayanması gerekiyor. Çünkü bu alanda da hepinizin malumu, Türkiye'de Afrika çalışmaları çok çok yeni. Afrika alanında yani hangi perspektiften bakarsanız bakın, çalışmalar daha emekleme aşamasında. Bu bağlamda bu çalışmaları desteklemek için de Afrika Vakfı, Afrika Akademisi ile eğitim programlarını yürütüyor. Önümüzdeki dönemde eğitim programlarını biraz daha ileri seviyeye taşıyıp inşallah yurt içi ve yurt dışı üniversite işbirlikleriyle African Studies, multidisipliner bir perspektifte bu alanda master, doktora seviyesinde eğitim programlarıyla çalışmasını geliştirecek. Bilginin üretimi, literatürün inşası bizim açımızdan önemli. Bunun için de Afrika Vakfı yayınlarını oluşturduk. Afrika Vakfı Yayın Evi'nin ilk kitabını da sizlere tanıtmaktan onur duyuyorum. Geçen sene Türkiye-Afrika zirvesi, 3. zirvesi gündemdeyken ki önümüzdeki bu dönem yine gündemde. Bu üçüncüsü olacak. Afrika'nın birçok ülkeyle yürüttüğü zirve diplomasilerini biz farklı bir perspektifte ele alalım. Bunları karşılaştırmalı olarak inceleyelim. Türkiye'nin de ilk iki tecrübesinden önümüzdeki üçüncü zirveye hazırlık sürecine nelere dikkat etmesi gerektiği noktasında bir öneri geliştirelim de bir çalışma başlatmıştık. Bu çalışmanın sonucunda zirve diplomasilerini ele alan ilk kitabımızı Türkçe ve İngilizce olarak araştırmacılara, politikacılara, Türkiye ve uluslararası arenaya sunuyoruz. İnşallah sizlerin desteğiyle bu kitaplar, bu yayınlar çoğalır. Hızlıca hem Türkiye'ye, Türk kamuoyuna, Türk araştırmacılara, Türk öğrencilere Türkçe bir literatür kazandırmak hem de Türkiye'de üretilen bu bilgiyi İngilizce olarak en azından dünya kamuoyuna, uluslararası araştırmacılara ulaştırmak hedefimiz. İleriki yıllarda belki farklı dillerle zenginleştiririz. Afrika Vakfı yayınları bu anlamda sizin önerilerinize, desteklerinize ziyadesiyle açık. Bunun dışında vakıf olarak araştırmalarımızı arttırmaya devam ediyoruz. Yine Türkiye-Afrika İşbirliği'nde önemli kalem tutan kalkınma yardımlarını ele aldığımız araştırma raporumuzu Türkiye-Afrika İşbirliği'nde kalkınma yardımları Türkçe olarak inşallah bunu şu anda raporu ücretsiz olarak da dağıtıyoruz. Bu inşallah internetten de download edilebilecek, indirilebilecek. Özetini de Türk-İngilizce olarak hazırlamayı planlıyoruz en yakın zamanda. Güney Afrika'nın Black Economic Empowerment politikasını ele alan bir araştırmayı da İngilizcesini burada önce yayınladık, Türkçesini de yakın zamanda yayınlayacağız. Bunlar da yine Afrika Vakfı'nın web sayfasında ve sosyal medya hesaplarından ücretsiz olarak indirilebilir. Tekrar başta araştırmacılarımız, moderatörlerimiz, bilim kurulu Sayın Afyara Emin'in önderlik ettiği, bunun dışında bize partnerlikleriyle güç veren, destek veren City University of Mogadishu, İstanbul Ticaret Üniversitesi, Ankara Sosyal Bilimler Üniversitesi'ne, Lokman Hekim Üniversitesi'ne çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Heritage zaten bizim asli partnerimiz. İnşallah ileride çok daha kapsamlı, daha spesifik programlarla, çalışmalarla karşınızda olacağız. Ben burada bu çalışmanın, bu sürecin yürütülmesinde bize destek veren genç öğrenci arkadaşlarımıza çok çok teşekkür ediyorum. Bu çalışmayı gönüllü üniversite öğrencisi arkadaşlarla bugün bu şekilde size sunduk. Profesyonel, ücretli insanlar değil, Afrika ve bu alana bir şekilde kendini vermek isteyen, bu alana yönelen arkadaşlarının yaklaşık 3-4 haftalık yoğun çalışmasıyla bu programı size inşallah eksiksiz sunabilmişizdir. Eksiklerimiz varsa da affola. Bizim tabii programın gerçekleşmesinde destek veren, Somali'de iş yapan, Somali-Türkiye arasında ekonomik ilişkilerde payı olan firmalarımıza da çok çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Onlar olmasa zaten online yapmak zorunda kalacaktık. Bu sıcaklığı hissedemeyecektik. Onlara çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Sayın Bakan Cemal Bey, Somali'den program için buraya geldi. Kendine gerçekten minnettarız. Cevdet Bey, Cevdet Yılmaz Bey kendisi Türkiye'nin ilk günlerden itibaren Somali politikasında yer almış eski Kalkınma Bakanımız. Sahada birkaç sefer birlikte de bulunmuştuk Somali'de. Bugün parlamentoda Bütçe ve Plan Komisyonu Başkanı olarak kendileri de programımıza katıldılar. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ben tekrar sizlere teşekkür ederek İnşallah bir sonraki programda buluşmak üzere diyorum. Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Kalın sağlıcakla.
Sayın katılımcılar, Lokman Hekim Üniversitesi'nin kısa bir duyurusu olacak.
Hello everyone. Thank you for this wonderful organization. We are planning to make a little visit to our Lokman Hekim University. We have a stand here. We will make the registration. We will organize the transport also. If you would like to see our university and our dental hospital, we would like to make this organization, and we will take your names. Thank you. We will wait in our stand, which is here. Thank you, everyone.